Adeline's Pav. Dad, please come pick me up in 1 week. I'm ready to marry Creighton's heir like you wanted, I whispered into the phone, my voice shaking. Mary? Honey, what are you saying? Aren't you married to Ethan? My dad asked, confused and worried. Not anymore. I'm getting a divorce, I choked out, tears filling my eyes. Tell Mom to start the wedding preparations. Before he could say another word, I ended the call. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. My whole body trembled as I buried my face in my palms. 2 years ago, I thought I was living a perfect life. Now I know it was all a lie. 3 weeks ago, I was in a terrible car accident. My car was hanging by the edge of a cliff. I was 9 months pregnant, bleeding, terrified, and alone. At the hospital, the doctors called my husband to get consent to operate. 99 missed calls, but no response. Then finally, on the 100th try, he answered, Adeline. Ethan's cold voice came through the phone. Why are you so desperate for attention? I told you I have a meeting. Stop bothering me. Before I could say anything, a woman's voice sounded beside him. Ethan, honey, hurry. Let's go to the party before it's over, she said. That voice, I knew it too well. It belonged to Clara, his first love. 6 months ago, she returned from London, crying, bruised, and begging Ethan for help. She said her husband had abused her and that she had nowhere else to go since she was an orphan. Ethan didn't want her near him at first, but I begged him to forgive her. She needs help, Ethan, I told him. Please, you can't turn your back on her. Reluctantly, he agreed and helped her process her divorce. I even convinced him to let her move in with us. 3 months ago, she told me she was pregnant. She said it was her ex-husband's child, and I believed her. I took care of her like a sister. I cooked for her, drove her to her doctor's appointments, and watched her belly grow, never knowing I was nurturing my own betrayal. The call ended, and I stared at the phone with tears blurring my vision. My hands pressed against my stomach, trying to protect the life inside me, but it was too late. Because of the delay, my baby didn't survive. I went into a coma and woke up days later in a hospital bed. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I overheard Ethan's voice outside my room. Mr. Morales, the doctor said, sounding frustrated, I can't keep her in a coma anymore. Her life is in danger if I keep inducing her. The stem cell transplant surgery has already been done, and Clara has recovered. It's only fair Adeline wakes up now. Fair? Ethan snapped. If Adeline wakes up now, she'll find out I caused her accident just to get her stem cells for Clara. I need her unconscious until Clara gives birth to my son. My heart stopped, so all this while, I'd been taking care of Clara and her pregnancy, feeding her, helping her, loving her like family, not knowing she was sleeping with my husband, pregnant for him, and stealing my life behind my back. The doctor gasped. Mr. Morales, that's not possible. She could die if... I don't care, Ethan shouted. You've been paid enough. If you ruin this for me, I'll ruin you. I pressed my trembling hand against my chest as silent tears rolled down my cheeks. The air around me felt heavy, choking me. My husband, the man I loved, had tried to kill me all to save another woman, and not just any woman, but the same one who abandoned him at the altar 3 years ago. 3 years ago, he climbed the highest building to end his life, and I saved him. Now this is how he repays me, by destroying my life and that of my unborn child to save his first love. What a cruel twist of fate. When they walked away, I reached for my phone with shaking hands and called my lawyer. Mr. Harris, I said, my voice flat. Prepare the divorce papers. I want them signed before the week ends. I hung up and let the phone fall onto the sheets. Feeling pressed, I dragged my weak body out of the ward as my legs trembled. As I stepped into the hallway, laughter drifted from one of the rooms nearby. Frowning as the voices were familiar, I moved closer, my heart pounding with dread. Through the half-closed blinds, I saw Ethan sitting on the edge of a hospital bed, brushing Clara's hair away from her face. She smiled up at him, her hand resting on her swollen belly. You did it, Ethan, she whispered. Our baby is safe. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. He's worth everything I lost. My breath hitched. I pressed my palm to my mouth to stop the sob that tried to escape. Everything I lost, those were his words. I turned away, trembling, my vision blurring as I stumbled into the bathroom. The fluorescent light buzzed above me as I gripped the sink, staring at the woman in the mirror. I looked pale, hollow-eyed, and miserable. The door opened and Clara's reflection appeared behind me. "Why are you hiding, Adeline? Don't you want to take care of me and my baby now?" she asked in a mocking voice. I ignored her and splashed water on my face. "Get lost, Clara." Clara pouted. "That's not a very nice way to talk to me, Adeline, considering I'm the one who's been making all the decisions around here." I finally spared her a glance. "What do you want? Is it because you're pregnant for my husband? You're nothing but a whore I took pity on and helped." Clara's face scrunched up with anger as she smiled. "I know that, Adeline. I'm grateful you brought me into your home, which is why I want to show you a picture of your cute son before he died." I scoffed. "What nonsense are you talking about? My son died even before he was born." Clara giggled. "Oh my, didn't the doctor tell you? Your son was perfectly alive after he was born, except you slipped into a coma so you couldn't see him." My heart lurched. "Are you joking right now?" Clara brought out her phone and showed me a picture of a newborn baby boy. Tears gathered in my eyes as I stared at him. "He's so perfect. Oh, my sweet baby boy, he has my eyes," I cried. Clara grinned. "Yes, such a beautiful boy." "Where is he?" I demanded. Clara smiled wickedly. "See, that's the issue. Your son was too perfect, and I couldn't have anyone contending with the position of my son as Ethan's heir." My throat closed up as I stared at her. "What do you mean, Clara? What did you do?" Clara shrugged. "Nothing. I just simply pointed out that the child's stem cell would be a perfect fit for me. The doctors advised Ethan that your child might not survive the procedure, but he insisted, and unfortunately, your child died. I mean, that's what I wanted, but I didn't know your husband would." I lunged at her, shrieking like a wild animal as I clawed at her neck. "You monster! You killed my child!" "Ethan, help me!" Clara screamed. The door flew open. Ethan stood in the frame, eyes wide for a heartbeat, then hard. He crossed the room in 2 long steps and yanked me by the hair as he flung me across the bathroom. The world titled, pain flashed across the back of my head as I tasted blood. "How could you?" Ethan yelled at me. Rage bubbled inside me as I glared at him. "She killed my son. Both of you. You attacked a pregnant woman. You don't deserve to be a mother. That's why your son died." Ethan interrupted me sharply. A whimper escaped my lips as my throat constricted from his harsh words, but he barely spared me a glance as he carried Clara bridal style, leaving me in a pool of blood on the bathroom floor. I sat up on the bathroom floor, and then it dawned on me that Ethan only cared about Clara. "In 7 days, I will leave, but I won't go quietly. I'll make them regret ever hurting me and my child." Adeline's Pav. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my ward. The smell of disinfectant stung my nose and my head throbbed. My body ached as if I'd been dragged across broken glass. The doctor was standing beside my bed, writing something on my chart, his face pale and stiff. "Mrs. Morales," he said quietly, not looking at me, "if something like today happens again, you might lose your womb." I stared at him. My voice came out rough. "How much?" He blinked. "Pardon? How much did he pay you to steal my stem cells and kill my son?" His pen froze midair. "Mrs. Morales, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice shaking. "You did it. You helped them. Now discharge me before I make you regret it." His shoulders sagged. Without another word, he handed me the papers. I signed them with trembling fingers. "You should really stay a few more days," he murmured. "I'd rather die than spend another second here," I said coldly. He lowered his gaze. "Please, be careful, ma'am." I didn't answer. I grabbed my things and walked out. My legs were weak, but my anger was stronger. When I reached the mansion, the same one I gifted Ethan on our first wedding anniversary, my chest tightened. I had chosen every color, every curtain, thinking this would be the home where our children grew up. Now it felt like a grave. I pushed the door open. Laughter spilled from the living room. Clara was curled up on Ethan's chest, her swollen feet in his hands as he massaged them gently. A bitter laugh escaped me. I remembered asking Ethan once to massage my feet when I was 7 months pregnant. He had thrown $10 on the table and said, "Ask a maid. I don't do dirty jobs." Now he was doing that dirty job with a smile. "You two look cozy," I said, forcing a smile. Ethan's hand froze. He pulled away from Clara, his face tightening. "What are you doing here? You were supposed to stay in the hospital." "Why?" I asked quietly. "So you could keep pretending I don't exist?" he glared. Don't start. Clara is pregnant. You're supposed to take care of her, not cause trouble. My throat burned. You killed my child for her. Enough, he snapped. If you weren't so unstable, maybe your child would still be alive. The words slammed into me like a blade. I couldn't breathe. I turned away before he could see the tears in my eyes. Don't worry, I'll be gone soon. Upstairs, I stopped outside the nursery door. It used to smell like baby powder. I had spent nights painting clouds on the ceiling, laughing as Ethan teased me for being too detailed. Now the door was half open. I pushed it wider and froze. Everything was gone. The crib, the stuffed toys, even the blue curtains I had sewn myself were all gone. The walls had been painted pale pink, with a name I didn't recognize written above the crib. Baby Jared. My heart cracked. I stepped inside and saw my baby's ultrasound photo on the floor. The glass shattered. I knelt and reached for it. My sweet boy, I whispered. A sharp heel pressed down on my hand. Pain seared through my skin as glass bit deep. Clara's voice came from behind me, sweet and cruel. Oops, did I step on something precious? I looked up at her, shaking. What is wrong with you? She smiled. Oh, don't be mad. Ethan said I could take over this room since, well, you don't need it anymore. My hand bled onto the floor. I stood, glaring at her. You're a monster. I stood up, cradling my bleeding hand, and she gave me a mock pity look. Oh my, are you okay, Adeline? Why would you hurt yourself because of me? You could have just told me to leave the nursery room, Clara said in a loud voice as she began sobbing. What are you saying? I asked her in a confused voice. Adeline, stop hurting yourself, she shrieked. I was still staring at her confused when Ethan appeared in the doorway and saw me cradling my bleeding hand. What are you doing now? He asked me in a bored voice. I didn't do anything, she's the one. But Clara interrupted me. I'm the one who made her hurt herself, Ethan. She got upset that you asked me to take over the nursery. I stared at her, shocked. But that's not what. Enough! Ethan snapped. I don't want to hear your crazy stories, Adeline. I've tolerated your bullshit enough. Just then, Clara picked up a customized diamond necklace. Ooh, this is so pretty. I want it, she said. No, that's my... The words were hardly out of my lips when the necklace fell from her hand and broke. I stared at the broken pieces of my baby's customized diamond necklace picture. That was all I had of him left. Oops, Clara whispered smugly. I stared at the broken necklace pieces, the diamonds glittering under the light like tiny tears. It was the only thing left of my son, a diamond necklace with his ultrasound etched inside a crystal pendant. My breath caught, my knees hit the floor. How could you? This is the only... Adeline, Ethan said, voice flat. Don't start again. Clara is pregnant. She can't be stressed. Clara sniffled dramatically and clung to him. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't mean to upset her. He cupped her cheek tenderly, right there in front of me. It's not your fault. Besides, it's just a necklace. Just a necklace? I had customized that necklace specifically for my son. I pressed my bloody hand against the floor to steady myself. It's not just a necklace, Ethan. That was the last thing left of my son. Clara's lips twitched, almost smiling behind his shoulder. Poor thing. Maybe she should get therapy, Ethan. She's been unstable since the accident, she whispered, loud enough for me to hear. I don't need help. I just need you to stop taking what doesn't belong to you. I snapped at Clara. Maybe Clara is right and you need therapy, Ethan said. Just as he finished speaking, 2 bodyguards entered the room and held me. What is going on here? Let me go, Ethan, I cried, struggling against the guards. Ethan crossed his arms. You've lost control again, Adeline. You need help. I don't need help. She's lying, I shouted, turning to him with tears in my eyes. You can't even see it, can you? She's using you. Clara sniffled and wrapped her arms around her stomach. Ethan, I'm scared. Please don't let her near me. What if she hurts the baby next time? That did it. Ethan's face hardened. Enough. Take her to the hospital for therapy now. Ethan, please, I begged. You're sending your wife away because of her? He didn't answer. He just turned his back and walked away, his hand resting protectively on Clara's waist as if I were the danger. The guards dragged me out while Clara's trembling voice followed behind, mockingly. I'll take good care of your husband while you get the help you need, Adeline. I screamed her name, but the door slammed shut before I could reach her. Adeline's paw. The first thing I noticed when I woke up was the cold. I was strapped to a narrow bed in a white room that smelled of bleach. A man in a doctor's coat stood beside me, humming softly as he checked a syringe. "Where am I?" I whispered. He smiled without looking up. "Your husband said you needed help. Don't worry, Mrs. Morales. I'm here to fix you." The needle slid into my arm before I could speak. My head spun, my tongue heavy from the drug. I tried to speak but couldn't, my wrists fighting uselessly against the straps. The doctor glanced at me. "Don't worry, we'll make you feel better. Just relax." He pressed a button. Pain shot through my body like lightning. I screamed. "Shh," he said softly. "It's part of the treatment." For 2 days, I lost track of time. My body ached from the shocks. My throat burned from crying. Every time I begged to go home, they injected me again. I heard the nurses whisper when they thought I was asleep. "Clara said not to leave marks," one murmured. "Pity," the other replied. "She paid so well." That was when I realized that Clara had arranged a torture session for me and pretended it was therapy. By the second evening, I couldn't even cry anymore. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to end. When the door opened, Ethan walked in later that night, as I've been discharged. I thought I'd cry or shout, but I didn't. I just stared at him, unable to say a word. He frowned. "You look terrible. It's only been 2 days. Only 2 days." I didn't reply. I didn't have the strength to. I just kept shivering from the cold weather. It was raining heavily outside. "Let's go," he said flatly. "Clara's waiting at home. She needs me." Of course she did. He didn't even help me stand. I followed him silently, each step burning through my legs. In the car, the silence was unbearable. The city lights blurred outside my window. I stared at my hands. I was trembling and cold, but he didn't spare me any glance. Then his phone rang. Clara's voice came through the speaker, trembling and soft. "Ethan, please, come home. The baby, something's wrong. He's not moving." Ethan's hand tightened on the steering wheel. Without a word, he pulled the car to the side and unlocked my door. "Get out." My head snapped up. "What?" I said, "Get out, Adeline. Clara needs me." "You're leaving me here?" His eyes met mine for a second, flat and cold. "You'll manage." The door slammed, and the car sped off, splashing mud across my skirt. I stood by the roadside, shaking in the rain, watching the red taillights fade away. I tried to cross, but my vision blurred as headlights flashed, a horn blared, and then everything went dark. When I woke up again, I was in another hospital bed. My body hurts everywhere. A dull pain pulsed deep in my stomach. A doctor walked in quietly, his face grim. "Mrs. Morales," he said, "you're lucky to be alive. But we had to perform an emergency surgery. The damage was severe. I'm sorry, but you've lost your womb." My world stopped. I stared at him, my lips trembling. What did you just say?" He lowered his eyes. "There was too much internal bleeding. You won't be able to conceive again." My breath came out in shallow gasps. The monitor beside me beeped rapidly as tears slid down my cheeks. A knock sounded on the door. Clara stepped inside, dressed in soft pink, her hands resting gently on her round belly. "Oh dear," she said, feigning sympathy. "I heard you had a little accident. Such a shame about your womb." She tilted her head, smiling. "But look on the bright side. Now you can focus on helping me raise our child." I gripped the blanket. "Why are you everywhere? Are you stalking me?" Clara laughed wickedly. "I only came to admire my handwork. I'm not happy you survived the accident when I gave them clear instructions, but at least now you can't have any child for Ethan." My chest tightened, and before I could stop myself, I yanked her hair, tears rolling down my cheeks. "How could you? Isn't it enough you've killed my son? What more do you want?" "Help!" Clara cried out. The door opened suddenly as Ethan walked in with the doctor, their eyes going wide in disbelief. "It's barely 24 hours and you're attacking her again?" Ethan snapped, pushing me roughly. I fell from the bed as my back hit the edge of the bed, ripping my stitches open, and I started bleeding again. "Ethan," I whispered, "she did this to me. She sent the people who ran me down." He cut me off. "Stop lying. I'm tired of your antics." I froze. "What?" "I caught the man who hit you," he said, tossing a file onto my bed. "He confessed. You paid him to hit you. I'm so disgusted by you, I can't even look at you right now." I stared at him, horrified. "That's not true. You think I'd do that to myself?" Ethan scoffed. "Of course you would. You'd do anything for attention." I stared at him, my mouth hanging open with shock, but before I could speak, he continued. He stepped closer, his voice low and cruel. How low are you willing to go for attention, Adeline? You've lost your mind. Clara has done everything to make you feel better, but you keep attacking her. How evil can you be? I lost my child, Ethan, I cried. And now, he turned away before I could finish. Enough. Clara's baby shower is tonight. Try to act like a decent human being for once. Help her get ready. Clara leaned close, smiling sweetly. Don't worry, Adeline. I'll make sure Ethan saves you a slice of cake. The door slammed behind him as he left with a smirking Clara. I sat there, staring at the hospital gown that was now stained with blood. My hands trembled as my phone buzzed beside me. It was a message from Mr. Harris, my lawyer. Divorce papers have been delivered. A tear slipped down my cheek, the last one I'd ever cry for Ethan Morales, Adeline's Pav. A few hours after Ethan stormed out of my hospital room, I was discharged. The doctor stared at me with pity shining in his eyes. Please, Mrs. Morales, you have to take it easy. Anything else that happens from here, your life could be in serious danger, the doctor said. I didn't say a word as I signed the divorce papers. Then I stumbled outside. My legs were shaking and my lower belly was in so much pain. I half expected Ethan to be waiting outside, especially since he's been blowing up my phone with text messages since reminding me to come home and help Amber. Ethan wasn't there to pick me up. Of course, he wasn't. What was I expecting from a man who had left me for dead twice? When I got home, the house was alive with laughter and clinking glasses. Blue and gold decorations hung everywhere, balloons tied to the stair rails, and a large banner stretched across the living room. Welcome, baby Jared Morales. It took me a second to realize today wasn't just Clara's baby shower. It was also our second wedding anniversary. And yet, not a single flower, not a single glance from Ethan hinted that he even remembered. Ethan's friends who had arrived early were staring at me when I walked in, their eyes filled with mock pity as they whispered, "There she is. I can't believe she still lives here." She really thought Ethan would forget Clara? They grew up together, and he's been in love with her. I heard she lost her child and now she's barren. Poor thing, she's so in love with Ethan, she doesn't want to leave him. Each word sliced through me like glass, but I kept walking, not sparing them a glance. When I reached the grand hall, Clara stood in the middle, radiant in a silk blush gown, glowing with the fullness of pregnancy. Ethan stood beside her, adjusting her shawl, his expression soft, almost worshipful. I had seen him look at me that way once. Now it felt like a lifetime ago. "Adeline," Ethan said curtly, barely sparing me a glance. "You're home. Clara's shower starts in an hour. Make sure everything is ready." My voice came out low and steady. "Of course. I wouldn't want to ruin your big day." He frowned, clearly irritated, but before he could speak further, Clara turned to me with that syrupy smile that hid venom. "Oh, Adeline, you're just in time. The cake and gifts are ready, but I'm missing one small detail. Could you please prepare something for me to eat?" she asked. I frowned. "There are a lot of maids here. Get one of them to do it." "Oh, it's just you make really good meals for pregnancy, so I just thought, never mind, I'll get one of the maids," Clara said, feigning sadness. Ethan stopped her as he turned to me. "You have nothing else to do, Adeline. Make yourself useful and prepare a meal for her." I limped toward the kitchen when Clara's voice sounded, "Adeline, please be a darling and help me get the files for Ethan to sign. He promised to give me a new car today, and I've arranged the paperwork." I went to the desk and saw the paperwork of the car. It was the Lamborghini I've been telling Ethan to buy for me, but yet he didn't get it. Now he's gotten it for Clara with a customized plate number. I scoffed and slipped the 2 documents into the car paperwork and took it to Ethan, who signed all the documents without reading them. "At least, even if you're barren now, you're still useful in the office," Ethan said in a cutting tone. I bit back the tears and took the documents to the kitchen. I removed the divorce papers and the assets transfer he had signed and smiled. Just a few more days and I'll be out of this hellhole forever. By the time the guests arrived, the house sparkled like a palace. Music played softly and laughter bounced off the marble walls. Clara was everywhere, glowing, adored, and surrounded. I stood at the back, half invisible. Ethan's mother, Mrs. Morales, swept into the room in a flowing gown, her pearls gleaming. "Clara, my dear," she exclaimed, kissing her cheek. "You look stunning. Look at that belly. Finally, a grandchild." Her sharp eyes landed on me. "Adeline, you're back." "Yes, mother," I said quietly. She sniffed, her lip curling. "You should have stayed in the hospital. You'll only bring bad luck here. You couldn't even keep a child alive, yet you want to stay in this family?" Clara placed a gentle hand on Mrs. Morales's arm. "Don't say that. Adeline didn't mean for the accident to happen." Mrs. Morales sighed dramatically. "You're too kind, Clara. A barren woman like her should learn humility. It's no surprise Ethan lost interest. Men need heirs, not bad omens." Laughter rippled through the crowd. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails bit into my palms. "My son didn't die because I'm barren," I said, my voice trembling. "He died because your son killed him." The room fell silent. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Adeline." "She did it," I shouted, pointing at Clara. "She told you to take my stem cells for her. You killed our child to save her." Gasps echoed through the hall. For a moment, Ethan looked uncertain. Then Clara flinched, covering her mouth, her eyes wide with fake tears. "I can't believe you'd say that," she whispered. "I never wanted this. Ethan, please don't let her ruin today." "Enough, Adeline," Ethan said coldly. "You're embarrassing yourself. This is Clara's day, not your pity show." I took a step back, tears burning my eyes. "Do you even remember what today is?" He blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Our anniversary." There was silence, then laughter followed, as Mrs. Morales and some of the guests snickered, including Clara's friends. Clara smiled faintly. "Oh, I didn't know. You poor thing. I guess the dates got mixed up." Mrs. Morales chuckled. "Don't start drama, Adeline. This is a celebration of life, not of your mistakes." I felt my throat close. Before I could say another word, Clara suddenly gasped, clutching her stomach. "Ethan, my baby." Ethan rushed to her side immediately. "Clara, what happened?" Between sobs, she whispered, It's Adeline. She served me food earlier. I think it had peanuts. I told her I'm allergic." The room erupted in chaos. Guests murmured, eyes turning toward me with disgust. "What kind of woman does that?" "She's jealous. She wants to harm the baby." "Adeline," Ethan shouted, fury flashing across his face. "What did you do? If anything happens to Clara or my child, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." My lips parted, but no sound came out. I wanted to scream that it was all a lie, but no one would listen. He scooped Clara into his arms and turned away without another glance. "I'm taking her to the hospital. Don't follow us." The door slammed behind him. I stood alone in the hall, surrounded by their laughter fading down the driveway. The guests avoided my gaze, whispering like vultures as they filed out of the house. I looked at the cake, the decorations, the roses, all celebrating the woman who had taken everything from me. My hands shook as I touched the envelope on the table, the one holding his signed papers. A bitter smile curved my lips. "Happy anniversary, Ethan," I whispered. "You just signed your empire away." Adeline's pav. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of footsteps, heavy, angry ones. The door slammed open. Ethan stepped in, his expression cold, followed by two of his guards. "Take her," he said flatly. My heart raced. "Ethan, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. The guards grabbed me, dragging me out of the room. I struggled, crying out his name, but he only stared ahead. They shoved me into the old storage room at the far end of the house. Dust filled the air. My knees hit the floor. "This is punishment," Ethan said, standing in the doorway, "for what you did to Clara last night." "I didn't do anything," I shouted. "She's lying." "Enough!" His voice cut through me like glass. "You'll stay here until you learn to control yourself." He threw something into the room. It was a bouquet of lilies. My throat tightened immediately. He knew I was allergic. "Ethan, please," I gasped. "Not this. You know I can't." "You should have thought about that before hurting Clara." His tone was cold. "Maybe this will teach you to behave." Then the door slammed shut. I pounded on it until my hands hurt, tears blurring my vision. My chest burned as the air thinned. I could barely breathe. I fell to the floor, clawing weakly at the door, my lungs screaming for air. After what felt like forever, the door opened. I collapsed onto the hallway floor, coughing violently. Ethan stood over me, his expression unreadable. "If you ever touch Clara again, Adeline," he said slowly, "I swear you'll regret it." He turned and walked away. I lay there for a long time, shaking. Then my phone buzzed beside me. I fumbled to answer. "Sweetheart," my mother's voice came through, soft and worried. "Your father booked your flight. 2 days from now. Come home, Adeline, please." My lips trembled. "I'll come," I whispered. "I promise." When the call ended, I sat there staring at the wall. Something inside me broke completely. I dragged myself up, went to my room, and pulled out the box from under my bed. Inside were the memories of a life that no longer existed. Wedding photos, love notes, Ethan's first gift to me, the tiny blue blanket I'd bought for our son. One by one, I threw them into the fireplace. The photos curled and blackened. The smell of burnt paper filled the air. I watched until nothing remained but ash. I went back to the bedroom and started packing my clothes and documents into my box. When I turned around, Ethan was standing by the door. His face was hard, his eyes cold. "So you're packing already," he said. "Good. When Clara comes back, she'll move into the master bedroom. The guest room makes her uncomfortable. You can stay there." I said nothing. He frowned. "I'm glad you're finally seeing things my way. Maybe you're not as useless as I thought." I turned back to my suitcase. "Is that all, Ethan?" He ignored me and continued, "Clara's in the hospital. She needs a blood transfusion. You'll come with me." I froze. "No, I'm not donating anything to her." His jaw tightened. "You'll do as I say." When I didn't move, he grabbed my arm and pulled me along. "You owe her for everything she's endured because of you." When we arrived, the doctor hesitated the moment he saw me. His eyes flicked from my pale face to the needle tray on the table. "Mr. Morales," he began carefully, "your wife isn't in any condition for this. Her blood levels are critically low, and she's still recovering from—" Ethan's glare cut him off. "Do I look like I care? Clara's life is on the line. Do it." The doctor shifted uncomfortably. "If I take more blood from her, she might—" "Do it," Ethan snapped, his voice echoing across the sterile white room. The doctor's hands shook slightly as he inserted the needle into my arm. The cold sting of metal pierced my skin, and crimson began to flow into the transparent bag. The sound of the drip was too loud. Ethan stood by the wall, his arms crossed. "Hurry it up," he said flatly. Minutes passed. My vision started to blur. The room tilted slightly, and the doctor's voice sounded distant. "That's enough. She's at her limit." Clara's shrill voice cut through the air. "Ethan, help! It hurts!" "There's nothing," the doctor started to say, but Ethan interrupted him. "Take more," he barked at the doctor. The doctor froze. "Sir, if we take more blood, she could—" "I said take more," Ethan thundered. The doctor's face was pale as he obeyed. The needle dug deeper, and I gasped. My chest hurt, my skin was clammy, but the worst pain was watching Ethan hold Clara's hand as I bled for her. "Ethan," I whispered weakly, "please, stop." He didn't even turn. He stroked Clara's hair and murmured, "It's okay, you'll be fine, don't cry." Each drop of blood felt like a piece of me leaving forever. My lips turned numb, my body trembling violently. The doctor tried once more. "Mr. Morales, she's going into shock." "She's faking it," Ethan snapped coldly. "She always does this when she wants attention." My vision darkened. The beeping from the monitor became frantic. I could barely breathe. Suddenly, the doctor shoved Ethan aside and pulled the tube out of my arm. "That's enough," he shouted. "You'll kill her." Blood splattered across the sheet. I slumped back, my body shaking uncontrollably. "Get her stabilized," the doctor barked at the nurses. The last thing I saw before the world went black was Ethan holding Clara close as she whimpered. "I'm sorry, Ethan. This is all my fault," she cried. "It's not your fault. Adeline is just being dramatic as always," Ethan said coldly. I stared at the man who had once promised to protect me as he glared at me like I was a stranger. Then I gave in to the darkness. Adeline's POV. When I opened my eyes, everything was white. For a moment, I thought I was dead. Then I saw Ethan sitting beside my bed. His head was bowed, his fingers running through his hair. He looked tired, like he's been sitting there all night. "You're awake," he said quietly, his voice thick. "You've been unconscious for 2 days." I stared at him, saying nothing. He sighed and looked away. "I didn't know it would get that bad. I panicked. Clara needed a blood transfusion, and I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean for you to suffer." The words meant nothing to me now. He continued softly. "I realize I've neglected you lately. I didn't even remember our anniversary. I've been distracted. I want to make it up to you." He reached for a paper bag beside him and set it on the bed. "There's a dress in there. When you're discharged, my driver will take you to dinner. I've made reservations at your favorite restaurant." I just stared at the bag. He forced a small smile. "Try to look beautiful again, Addie." He leaned in, brushed his lips against my forehead, and left. The door closed behind him and the room went silent. I sat up slowly, my body still sore, and checked my phone. There was a text from my father. "Your flight is at 9 p.m. tonight. My men will pick you up. I'm tracking your phone now." 2 hours after my last dinner with Ethan, a hollow laugh escaped my lips. The doctor came in not long after. "You're being discharged today, Mrs. Morales," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Mr. Morales has already paid the bills." "Of course he has," I murmured. He handed me my papers and left. 2 nurses came in with a dress box and a bouquet of white roses, my favorite flowers. I stared at them until one nurse awkwardly said, "Mr. Morales said these are your favorites." I scoffed under my breath. A few days ago, I might have smiled. Today, I wanted to throw them out the window. I dressed quietly. The red satin dress fit perfectly, as if he still remembered my size, but not who I was. When the driver came to get me, I followed silently. The car glided through the city as the sky turned gold with the setting sun. At the restaurant entrance, the waiter led me to a private table. When I got to the table, I saw Ethan smiling at me, and beside him was Clara. Clara looked radiant, dressed in soft ivory, her hands resting on her round belly. Ethan looked slightly uneasy but smiled when he saw me. "Addie, I'm sorry," he began, standing. "Clara didn't want to be alone tonight. She's been anxious lately. I couldn't just leave her." "Of course," I said flatly, taking my seat. "You could never leave her." Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly. "Let's not fight tonight." He reached into a small box and took out 2 necklaces. He handed me one. A crystal pendant. My breath caught. It was almost identical to the one Clara had broken. Inside was my baby's ultrasound. "I got this made for you," he said softly. "I thought maybe it would remind you of him." For a brief second, my heart trembled. Then he turned and brought out another necklace of the same design, but Clara's glittered brighter, lined with real diamonds. He clasped it around Clara's neck as she giggled softly. Clara smiled sweetly, holding hers up to the light. "It's beautiful, Ethan. You have such good taste." "I don't need reminders of something I'll never have again," I said quietly, setting the necklace back on the table. "Adeline." "I said I don't need it," I repeated, my tone sharper. He sighed and tried to change the subject, asking about my health, the house, meaningless things. I answered in short, cold words. Clara, meanwhile, filled the silence with stories about their childhood, about how Ethan used to sneak into her backyard, how they used to play piano together. Each story she told was deliberate and supposed to get a rise out of me, but I ignored her. Ethan smiled faintly through all of it, occasionally glancing at me as if hoping I'd join in. I didn't. Then, suddenly, the smell of gas hit me before a loud explosion followed. Boom! The restaurant exploded. The lights shattered, the ground shook, and screams filled the air. A blast of heat threw me backward, slamming me into the far end of the room. I hit the floor hard, pain surging through my body as debris rained down. "Adeline," I heard Ethan shout. "Ethan," I gasped, coughing through the smoke. "Help me." Clara clutched his arm, crying. "I can't move. Please, Ethan. The baby. I can't move." She wasn't hurt, not even a scratch. She was sitting perfectly upright, pretending to tremble. I blinked through the haze, watching him stand in the middle as he stared between me and Clara. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, full of hesitation, and then a cold resolve filled his eyes. "Hold on, Adeline," he yelled. "I'll come back for you." He scooped Clara into his arms and ran. I stared, disbelief and heartbreak tearing through me as I watched him disappear through the smoke, leaving me behind. Clara turned her head slightly in his arms and smiled at me before the flames swallowed her face. The heat grew unbearable. My lungs screamed for air. I tried to move, but debris pinned my legs. I couldn't breathe. So this is how it ends, I thought weakly. After everything, this is how my story ends. Even at the end, he still chose her. My head slumped forward. Darkness crept in. Through the haze, I saw shadows moving, 4 tall figures pushing through the smoke. One of them shouted, "Miss Adeline, hold on, your father sent us." Their voices echoed as my vision faded. "Please hang on, Miss Adeline." Then everything went black. Ethan's POV, Hold on, Clara, I have to go get Adeline now, I said to her. I kept her seated away from the restaurant as people cried and tried to call the fire department. Yes, please, Ethan, hurry. Save Adeline, she cried. I smiled at her. She was so sweet in wanting Adeline to be all right. I had no idea why Adeline had been bullying her. A few steps away from her, I noticed Clara's painful expression. I stopped and came back to her. What's wrong? I asked her. She shrugged. Oh, it's nothing. I could see from the way she was gritting her teeth that she was in pain. I held her. Talk to me, Clara. Hurry, go get Adeline, she said. Just as I was about to walk away again, I noticed the streaks of blood on her thighs. You're bleeding, Clara, I gasped. She smiled weakly. Yeah, I'll go to the hospital. You can't drive in this state, I said. She shrugged. I'll take a cab. I shook my head just as the sound of the fire department vehicle sounded. I'm having none of that, Clara. I'm taking you to the hospital myself, I stated. Clara frowned. What about Adeline? She's still inside. I hesitated a bit, but then I smiled at her. You don't have to worry. Adeline will be fine. The fire department will get her out. I carried Clara bridal style and took her to the car. Without thinking twice, I drove straight to the hospital. The doctor was surprised when he saw us coming. What's going on? He asked. I pointed at Clara. There was an explosion at the restaurant. She's bleeding. The doctor and nurses led her inside the emergency ward. I tried to walk in, but they stopped me. You can't be here, Mr. Morales. She will be fine, the nurse said, pushing me away. I paced around the hallway, my chest racing. It took about 30 minutes before my mom came running toward me. Ethan, she called out. I heaved a sigh of relief when I saw her. Mom, I don't know what's wrong with her. I'm so worried. My mom hugged me. Don't worry, she'll be fine. I saw the news and I remembered Clara mentioned she will be at the restaurant with you tonight. I nodded. Yeah, I'm just worried. How can Adeline be so wicked? She can't even come here to check up on Clara. Suddenly, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been in this hospital for almost an hour and I've not heard from Adeline. I started at my phone and started calling Adeline's number repeatedly, but it kept going to voicemail. She's probably upset you're here with Clara, my mom commented. I frowned. Adeline was in the restaurant with us. I better go back and check if she's all right. My mother stopped me. Of course she's all right. Is there anything wrong with her? I sighed. I didn't get her out of the fire, Mom. My mom scoffed. Oh, please, you know how needy Adeline can be. I'm sure she's out of there, and she's just ignoring you to make you feel bad. I thought about what she said, and I nodded. Over the last few days, Adeline has shown me she's ready to do whatever it takes to get my attention. I tried to convince myself my mother was right, that Adeline was just pulling another of her dramatic stunts, but the thought wouldn't sit still. Every time I blinked, I saw the flames swallowing the restaurant. An hour later, Clara was out of surgery and stable. I'd barely caught my breath when my phone rang. Mr. Morales? A man's voice said. This is Officer Derek from the city fire department. We need you to come to the central morgue immediately. My stomach dropped. Why? We recovered a body from the restaurant. It matches your wife's description. We'll need you to make a formal identification. For a moment, the corridor spun. That's impossible, I whispered. She must have gotten out. Sir, please come as soon as you can. The line went dead. I told my mother and she gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. Ethan, it can't be her. Go. I'll stay with Clara. I drove like a man possessed, red lights bleeding past me until the city blurred. The morgue was cold and silent. The officer met me at the entrance and guided me to a small room where a sheet-covered figure waited on a steel table. Sir, the coroner said quietly, this was the only body recovered from the fire. The victim was near the center of the blast. No one else was left inside when we cleared the site. My throat closed. That's not possible, I muttered again. Adeline, the fire department arrived. They should have pulled her out of the sheet. The smell hit me first, burnt fabric. The figure beneath was barely human, skin charred, hair gone, a wedding ring melted into what was left of the hand. I staggered backward. No, that's not her. Mr. Morales, the ring, the height, the build. It's not her, I shouted. My voice cracked through the room. She's alive somewhere, do you hear me? She can't be. The officer spoke softly. "We understand, sir, but she was the only woman unaccounted for. Everyone else evacuated before the explosion." I gripped the edge of the table, forcing myself to look again, hoping for something, anything that proved them wrong. But the body didn't breathe. It didn't move. "Do a DNA test," I said finally, my voice hollow. "I'm not signing anything until you prove this is Adeline." The coroner nodded. "We'll start immediately." I stumbled out into the driveway. I dropped to my knees beside the car. "God, please," I whispered. "Let her be alive. Let her hate me. Let her never forgive me, but let her live." For the first time in years, I prayed, Ethan's POV. After I left the morgue and returned back to the hospital, I found Clara with my mother, who was tending to her. She stared at me with a smile. "The doctor said I'm going to be all right. It was a light bleeding, triggered from fear." I nodded, forcing a smile. "That's good." Clara frowned, noticing my discomfort. "What's wrong, Ethan?" she asked. Tears suddenly filled my eyes as I stared at them. "It's the morgue. They called. They said." I trailed off, holding back painful tears. Clara's frown deepened. "What happened with the morgue?" "Stop making my daughter worried for no reason. She's pregnant," my mother cautioned me. I let out a sigh. "The morgue called me to identify a body. They suspect it to be Adeline." My mom's eyes widened with horror while Clara suddenly started crying. Clara's face went pale, her eyes wide with fear. No, Ethan, that can't be true. If I hadn't started bleeding, maybe you would have gone back for her. Maybe you could have saved her." She pressed her hands over her stomach as tears ran down her cheeks. "It's my fault, isn't it? I kept you from her." I quickly moved to her side. "Don't say that," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "It's not confirmed yet. They said it's just a possibility. I asked them to run a DNA test." She sniffed, looking at me with red, puffy eyes. "But what if it's really her?" I shook my head hard. "No, Adeline is alive. She's probably angry with me, hiding somewhere. You know her. She always does things like that to make me feel bad. She'll be home by now, waiting for me." My mother placed a hand on my shoulder. "Ethan, maybe you should go check the house." I nodded, needing to believe that was true. When I got home, the first thing that hit me was the silence. The air felt empty, like the house itself knew she was gone. I called her name once, then again, louder this time, but there was no answer. I walked into our room, expecting to see her things scattered everywhere like always. Her clothes on the chair, her books by the window, the perfume she loved on the dresser. But everything was gone. The closet was empty. Her jewelry box, her pictures, even her favorite blanket, all missing. I stood there, frozen, staring at the bare shelves. "What's going on?" I whispered. "Where did everything go?" It didn't make sense. I went to the sitting room, and I couldn't find the wedding pictures I had hung up on the wall. "Where is everything?" I asked the housekeeper loudly. The woman frowned. "Everything is right here, sir." "No, like where's everything belonging to Adeline?" "Where's our wedding picture?" I queried. The housekeeper frowned. "The mistress was burning things a few days ago. Maybe that's part of what she got rid of." My mouth hung open in shock as I watched the housekeeper walk away. How had Adeline been getting rid of stuff, and I didn't know? I had been so self-involved with Clara, I had forgotten to care for my wife. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands. Maybe someone from her family took her things. Maybe she really left. But something deep inside me twisted. The thought that she might really be gone, really dead, wouldn't leave me alone. I tried not to think about it. I focused on Clara, on the baby, on my mother's words. But the more I tried, the worse it got. Little things started to make me angry. The wrong meal, Clara calling my name too softly, the sound of her laughter. I snapped at everyone. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the fire again and heard her voice calling my name as she begged me to save her, but instead I left her there and carried Clara out. "It's not your fault," my mother would say. "You couldn't have known, and you certainly couldn't have left Clara inside there because she's pregnant." "I should have gone back for her, Mom," I stated. My mother nodded. "I'm sure Adeline is fine. She's just trying to make you feel bad." No words of reassurance could make me stop worrying about Adeline or thinking about the worst. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was the morgue. "Mr. Morales," the voice said. "The DNA results are back." My heart started racing. "And?" There was a long pause. "It's a match, sir. The remains belong to your wife, Adeline Morales. I stopped breathing. No, that's impossible. I'm sorry, the man continued. We also found that someone called the fire department during the incident. The caller said everyone had escaped. By the time we realized it was false information, it was too late to go back inside. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My knees went weak. I stumbled back until I hit the wall. No, you're wrong, I muttered, shaking my head. She's not dead. She can't be. But the man's voice was steady. I'm sorry, Mr. Morales. The test is accurate. The call ended, and I stood there in silence, my hands trembling. For the first time since the fire, I understood what real fear felt like. Adeline was gone, and it was all my fault, Ethan's POV. The moment I ended the call with the morgue, the world stopped moving. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor, but I couldn't bend down to pick it up. My throat burned, and all I could hear was the echo of the man's words. The test is accurate. The remains belong to your wife. I remembered staring into her broken eyes as I carried Clara out instead of her. Why hadn't I carried her out first? Because she was visibly injured? I don't know how long I sat on that floor, but the next time I looked up, I was suddenly standing in Clara's room, my hands shaking as she looked up at me. Ethan? She asked softly. What did they say? I swallowed hard. It's her. The body. It's Adeline. Her hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. No, Ethan. If I hadn't started bleeding, you would have gone back. You would have saved her. I shook my head, staring at the floor. Stop. It's not your fault. But even as I said it, something inside me screamed that it was mine. No, this is my fault, she cried. I hated that she was blaming herself. I should have gone back for her, but I just remained, and now she's dead. When my mother walked in and saw our faces, she frowned. What's going on? Did someone die? Tears clouded my eyes as I stared at her and nodded. The morgue confirmed the body belongs to Adeline. Ethan, my heart aches for you, but she's gone. What's done is done. You still have Clara and the baby, just thank God for that. You can start over now, marry Clara properly, my mother said in a cold voice. I froze. For a second, I thought I misheard her. Start over? My voice was quiet but sharp. You're talking about my wife's death. She's dead, Ethan, my mother said, frowning. We can't bring her back. At least something good came out of this. Don't, I snapped, my voice rising. Don't you dare talk about Adeline that way. My mother stepped back, startled. Ethan, I'm just... Leave, I shouted. Both of you leave. Clara flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. Please, don't be angry. I know I'm the reason she's gone. I can't live with this guilt. Clara, stop. No, she screamed, jumping off the bed. You should have saved her. It's my fault. She ran out before I could stop her. My mother shouted her name, but Clara didn't look back. Where is she going? My mother panicked. I ran after her, my heart pounding. I found her on the rooftop, standing near the edge as the wind whipped her hair around her face. Clara? I shouted, moving closer. Don't do this. She turned, tears streaming down her cheeks. You'll never forgive me. I don't deserve to live after what I did. Stop it, I said, reaching out my hand. Come down, please. She took a trembling step closer to the edge. I just wanted you to love me, Ethan. I never wanted her to die. Clara! I lunged forward and grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the edge. She fell against my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. Don't say that again, I whispered. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. I held her as she cried, my own chest hollow, my mind numb. But even as I said those words, a quiet voice in my head whispered, You're lying. You killed her. The door behind us slammed open. You've done enough already, Morales. I turned sharply. Standing there was Derek Hayes, Adeline's older brother. His face was dark with rage, eyes bloodshot from tears. What the hell are you doing here? I asked quietly. He threw a glare at me that could burn stone. I'm here to pick up my sister's things. The sister you killed. My breath caught. I didn't kill her. Save your lies, he snapped. She died because of you and your whore. His eyes flicked to Clara, who clung to my arm trembling. Watch your mouth, I growled. But Derek only laughed bitterly. Of course, defend her. You always did. You didn't even notice what you were signing away while you were playing house with your mistress. He reached into his jacket and flung a folded paper at me. It hit my chest and fell to the floor. I bent down, confused, and picked it up. My heart stopped when I saw the heading, divorce certificate. It had both our names, Adeline Morales and Ethan Morales. My signature was there in black ink. My head started spinning. "What is this?" I whispered. Derek's jaw tightened. "You signed it weeks ago. She sent it through your lawyer. But you were too blinded by your affair to even realize what you were signing. She left you long before the fire." My lips moved, but no sound came out. Derek stepped closer, his voice shaking. "You were supposed to protect her, Ethan. You promised my family you would. Instead, you destroyed her." He turned and walked away, his steps echoing in the empty hall. I stared at the paper in my hands, the black letters swimming through my tears. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. Clara's hand touched my arm, but I shrugged her off. The only thing I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat and Derek's voice in my head. "You didn't even know you'd signed her away." And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I deserved every bit of this pain. Ethan's POV. 2 days after Derek's visit, the divorce papers still sat on my desk. I'd read them so many times that the ink felt branded into my skin. My mother's voice came from the doorway. "Ethan, the service is in an hour." "I know," I said without looking up. She hesitated. "You shouldn't torture yourself like this. What's done is done." "What's done?" I looked up, my voice rough. "She filed for divorce and I didn't even notice." "How could I not notice, Mom?" She sighed, smoothing the hem of her black dress. "You were under stress. You had Clara's condition to worry about." I pushed back from the desk. "Don't start." Her mouth tightened, but she said nothing more. The cemetery smelled of rain and lilies. People whispered in clumps, pretending to mourn, pretending to understand. Clara clung to my arm, shaking. "I don't think I can face them," she murmured. "They're all looking at me with judgy eyes. It's my fault she died." "Don't say that," I said quietly. "Just stay close." When the priest's words faded into the wind, a murmur rippled through the crowd. "Homewrecker," someone shouted. Clara stiffened. Another voice followed, sharper. "You stole her life." I turned. 3 women were standing near the back row, faces red with anger, cameras suddenly flashing around them. "Hey!" I stepped forward, holding up a hand. "This isn't the place. Leave now." One of them pointed at Clara. "You think she deserves peace after what she did? Adeline's blood is on her hands." Gasps spread through the crowd. Clara started crying, clutching her stomach. "Please, stop." Security hurried forward, but the women were still shouting. "We'll make sure everyone knows what she did." I moved between them and Clara. "Enough," my voice cut through the noise. "No one speaks to her like that." A guard guided the women toward the gate, while reporters snapped pictures. My mother whispered, "Ethan, let them go. Don't make a scene." I ignored her. "Call the police. I want to know who sent them." 2 hours later at the station, the women sat across from me, heads bowed. The detective, a broad-shouldered man named Reed, dropped a folder on the table. "Mr. Morales, the payment records are clear. They didn't come on their own." I frowned. "Who paid them?" He slid the paper across. "The transfer came from an account under your wife's name, 3 days before the explosion." I stared at the numbers. "Adeline?" Reed nodded. "She arranged a protest, told them to expose a liar named Clara in public. The fire happened before they could act." I rubbed a hand over my face. "So she wanted to humiliate Clara even before the accident." Clara sat beside me, her voice small. "She hated me that much?" Reed looked uncomfortable. "It seems so, ma'am." I leaned back, exhausted. She was planning this while pretending everything was fine. My mother folded her arms. "You see, the woman was losing her mind. Let her rest now." I didn't answer. As we were about to leave, a different officer approached. "Mr. Morales, Chief Lawson needs a word with you." In the chief's office, the older man's tone was careful. "Mr. Morales, our investigation into the fire is complete. It wasn't caused by a random gas leak." My stomach tightened. "Then what was it?" He turned the report around so I could read it. "The gas line valve in the kitchen was tampered with manually. We made an arrest. Your wife paid someone to trigger the fire. She wanted to startle someone, but I guess she didn't know it would kill her." For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. "She did it herself?" "I'm afraid so. The evidence leaves little doubt." I closed the file slowly. "Thank you for telling me." As I stepped out into the sunlight, everything inside me hardened. The guilt that had followed me like a shadow finally broke apart. "She did this," I muttered. She destroyed herself. That evening, the house was filled with reporters again, their cameras flashing like lightning. I took Clara's hand and led her to the garden where everyone could see us. "Ethan, what are you doing?" she whispered. "Setting things right," I said. When the cameras turned our way, I raised my voice. "I've heard enough lies about my family. Clara didn't ruin my marriage. Adeline ruined herself. She couldn't handle losing the baby, and she turned her pain into hate." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My mother smiled faintly from the doorway. "She lost her mind, and even the therapy I sent her to couldn't help," I continued. "I won't let her ruin Clara, who has done nothing but help her." I dropped to one knee, the ring glinting in my hand. "Clara, will you marry me?" She gasped, covering her mouth. "Ethan?" The cameras flashed. People clapped. My mother started crying softly, whispering, "Finally." Clara nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger. She threw her arms around my neck and the crowd erupted. Adeline's pav. The first thing I felt was pain. A dull, heavy pain that hummed through every part of me. Then came the beeping, slow, steady, rhythmic. My eyelids fluttered and bright white light spilled in. "Adeline?" The voice sounded distant at first, trembling. Then warm fingers brushed my hand. "Adeline, sweetheart, can you hear me?" I turned my head weakly. My mother's face swam into view, blurred with tears. Beside her, my father stood, eyes red but smiling. "Mom?" My throat burned. The word came out rough, barely a whisper. Her cry broke the air. "Oh, thank God, you're awake!" My father pressed the nurse call button. "She's conscious. She's awake." Everything became noise. Nurses rushing in, voices blending, lights flashing. I blinked through it, confused, my lips dry. "How long?" I croaked, clutching my mother's hand. She wiped her tears, her voice trembling. 3 months, baby. You've been unconscious for 3 months. 3 months. The words hit me like a storm. I swallowed hard. "What happened?" My father moved closer, his voice low. "The restaurant exploded. We were nearby. We pulled you out before the building collapsed. The fire caught us too, but you took most of it." He hesitated, glancing at my bandaged legs. "You had third-degree burns on your lower body, and your face was badly injured. The doctors did reconstruction surgery. You almost didn't make it, Adeline." I tried to move my fingers. They shook. My body felt heavy, foreign. "So everyone thinks I'm dead?" My mother nodded. "Yes, we had to make sure of it. We arranged everything, a fake body, a quiet funeral. It was the only way to protect you." They helped me sit up slowly, and for the first time I saw my reflection in the mirror on the wall. The face staring back looked like me, but not exactly. The features were softer, the scars faint but visible, the eyes darker. My lips parted as I reached out and touched my cheek. I couldn't finish. "Beautiful," my mother said gently, kissing my forehead. "Different, yes, but still our Adeline." Tears filled my eyes. "Ethan?" My father hesitated, then sighed. "He thinks you're gone. After the fire, Clara framed you and made the police think that you caused the explosion. Everyone believed her. The police said you paid someone, and Ethan," his voice trailed off. "He believed it," I said flatly. "He thought you killed yourself out of anger or seeking for attention," my mother whispered. 2 months later, he married Clara on national TV. The words made the room tilt. I stared at the white ceiling until the blur of tears made it disappear. Just then, the door opened and Derek rushed in. He froze for a heartbeat, then ran to me, pulling me into his arms carefully. "Addie," he breathed, his voice breaking. "You scared the life out of me." I held him tight, my voice weak. "I missed you." He pulled back, smiling through tears. "You look different, but you're here. That's all that matters." "What happened while I was gone?" I asked. Derek exchanged a glance with our father. "I went to the mansion. I gave Ethan the divorce papers, the ones you signed. He didn't even remember signing them. He looked shocked, like he'd never seen them before. I also took the documents you gathered. They're safe." I clenched my jaw, the anger crawling back like fire under my skin. He thinks I'm dead, and he married her? That witch framed me, and he didn't even question it? My mother tried to calm me. "Sweetheart, please. You need to focus on healing first. We'll handle the rest." "No," I said, my voice sharp for the first time. "They took my name, my life, my peace. I won't rest until they know what that feels like." My father rested a hand on my shoulder. "And you will. But first, you'll walk again. You'll get stronger. Then we'll help you do whatever you need to. I looked at them, my family, the only people who hadn't betrayed me, and nodded slowly. Then I'll start with one step, I whispered, glancing at my legs. And after that, I'll take everything back. Yes, you will get back everything you've lost, Addie, my brother said. My eyes were filled with tears as I stared at my family. 2 years ago, they had warned me not to get married to Ethan, but I defied them. I'm so sorry, I apologized, tears filling my eyes. My mom hugged me while my dad patted my hair. Hush, baby girl. It's all in the past now, my dad said. When they pulled away from me, the nurse arrived to check my vitals and make sure that I was all right. The nurse wheeled me closer to the window. The sunlight hit my face, and for the first time since the fire, I smiled. Adeline Morales was dead, but I wasn't. Adeline Hayes was still very much alive. Adeline's POV. The first few days after waking felt like a blur of pain and medicine. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive, but it didn't feel like luck. It felt like determination. Every time I tried to move, my legs screamed. Every step with the walker felt like fire crawling through my bones. But the image of Ethan and Clara smiling happily married burned stronger than any pain. I would whisper to myself every morning, "You survived. Now get up. Try again, Adeline." Mrs. Lane said gently, holding out her hand. "One more step." "I can't," I whispered, my legs trembling. Sweat rolled down my neck, my arms shaking from holding the bars. "Yes, you can." Her voice was calm, steady. I bit my lip and pushed again. Pain shot through my knees like knives, but I took one small, shaky step forward, then another. "That's it," she said, smiling. "Good, you're doing great." I collapsed into the wheelchair with a weak laugh. "It doesn't feel great." "It never does at first," she replied, wiping my forehead. "You'll hate it until you don't." My mother clapped her hands softly from across the room. "That was perfect, honey." I groaned. "Perfect? I almost fell." "Almost," she said proudly, walking over to fix my hair. "That means you're improving." Mrs. Lane chuckled. "Your mom's right. You lasted longer today. We'll try again tomorrow." When they left, I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. The hospital lights felt too bright. Everything smelled like medicine. My muscles ached, but I refused to ask for more painkillers. I wanted to feel everything, every sting, every pull, because it reminded me I was alive. Later that evening, Derek walked in carrying a paper bag. "Brought you something." I raised a brow. "Please tell me it's not more soup." He grinned. "Nope, fried rice, real food." I smiled for the first time all day. "Thank you." He handed me the food and sat down beside my bed. "So, how was therapy?" "Painful," I said between bites. I almost screamed. He laughed quietly. "Almost?" "I didn't want to scare the new nurse," I teased, then sighed. "It's hard, Derek. Every step feels like my bones are breaking again." "I know," he said softly, "but you're getting better. A month ago, you couldn't even move your legs." I looked down at my bandaged knees. "Sometimes I wish I hadn't woken up." He frowned. "Don't say that." "I mean it," I said quietly. "Everyone thinks I'm dead, and maybe that's better. No one's waiting for me. No one cares." He reached out and squeezed my hand. "We care. Mom and Dad prayed every night for 3 months. We never gave up on you." Tears filled my eyes, but I blinked them away. "I don't know how to start over, Derek. I don't even know who I am anymore." "You're Adeline," he said firmly. "You're my sister. You survived something that should have killed you. That means you're stronger than you think." The next morning, my father came in while I was practicing moving from the bed to the wheelchair. "Easy," he said, helping me balance. "Don't rush." "I'm not," I muttered. "I just hate feeling helpless." He smiled faintly. "You've never been helpless. You just need time." I sighed. 3 months in a coma, and now this. Time feels like a punishment. "Or a second chance," he said quietly. I looked up at him. "Do you really think I can walk again?" His voice didn't waver. "I know you will. You've always had your mother's stubbornness." "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" He laughed softly. "Take it however you like." I smiled for the first time that morning. By the end of the week, I was standing with only a walker between me and the ground. The first step hurt, the second burned, but the third felt like victory. "Look, Mom," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I'm walking." She covered her mouth, crying too. "You're doing it, baby. You're really doing it." When I sat back in the wheelchair, she knelt beside me. "I'm proud of you." I shook my head. I couldn't have been here if it wasn't for you and Dad, if you guys hadn't found me when you did. I trailed off, tears streaming down my cheeks. Hush, Princess, my dad said. We found you, and that's all that matters. She brushed a strand of hair from my face. Yes, Addie, my mom smiled lovingly at me, wiping my tears. You're alive and getting stronger. You can do whatever you want now and be whoever you want to be. I stared out the window at the city skyline. No, I said softly. I don't want to become someone else. I want to become myself again. My father smiled. Whatever you want, Princess, just say it and we'll handle the rest. That night, I couldn't sleep. The room was dark except for the faint light of the monitor beside my bed. My legs throbbed, but I didn't care. I sat up slowly, gripping the walker, and forced myself to stand again. The floor was cold under my bare feet. My reflection in the window was a blur, but I whispered to it anyway. I'll walk, I'll heal, and then I'll make them see me again and make them pay. For the first time since the explosion, I stood without help, shaking, crying, and breathing heavily. And for the first time since I opened my eyes, I believed in myself. Adeline's POV. The morning air was cool when the nurse pushed my wheelchair out of the hospital building. For the first time in months, I saw the sun without glass between us. My hands tightened around the armrest. It feels wonderful, I whispered. My mother smiled beside me. Wonderful is good. It means you're alive. I nodded, though I wasn't sure being alive was enough anymore. We stopped by the garden outside the hospital gates. People walked past, chatting, laughing. I hadn't heard about normal life in months. It almost felt foreign. Then I heard a voice behind us. Two nurses, whispering near the bench. Did you see the news about Ethan Morales? One said. He and his wife just got featured in Modern Elite. The article called them the perfect couple who turned tragedy into strength. The other nurse sighed dreamily. Clara's so lucky. Her husband is devoted. They say his ex-wife went crazy. She tried to kill Clara but ended up dead. Something inside me snapped. I went crazy? He'd buried me alive and married my enemy. My mother noticed my clenched fists. Don't, Adeline. You can't let anger stop your healing. I took a deep breath. I'm not angry, I lied. It's not like there's anything I can do right now, even if I am. That evening, my parents joined me in the room. My father carried a folder and some newspapers. Adeline, he said, setting them down. There's something we should discuss. I frowned. What's wrong? He sat beside me, his voice careful. You remember the Creightons, our business partners from New York? I nodded slowly. Of course. Their son, Ian Creighton, was supposed to be your fiancé, my mother finished gently. You were betrothed when you were children, before Ethan came into the picture. I looked down at my hands. That was a long time ago. Yes, my father said softly, but things have changed. The Creightons were in a car crash 6 months ago. Both parents died. Ian survived, but barely. My heart twisted. What happened to him? He suffered severe head trauma, my father explained. He remembers very little. Some days he's lucid, other days he acts like a child. The doctors say it's partial memory loss. He's recovering, but slowly. I was quiet for a long time. Then I asked. My father nodded. Mostly. A few board members are running the company. He's under constant care. They say he's gentle now, harmless. My mother sighed. It's tragic. He doesn't even remember who he's engaged to. I stared at the floor. And his company? My father looked uneasy. Still the most powerful in New York after hours. Everyone wants their partnership, especially Ethan. I heard he's been trying to schedule a meeting with their board for months. My lips curved into a small, cold smile. Then it settled. My mother frowned. What do you mean? I'll marry Ian, I said quietly. It's what was planned years ago anyway. My father blinked. Adeline, are you sure? This isn't a business merger. He's unwell. I know, I said, but I also know Ethan. He's desperate to expand into Creighton territory. If he wants them, he'll have to go through me. My mother shook her head. You're still healing. You can't rush into something like this. I'm not rushing, I said firmly. I already told you before coming back that I'll marry him. My father exhaled slowly, studying my face. You're as stubborn as me. It's infuriating. I smiled faintly. Then you know I won't change my mind. You understand that his extended family members are running the company too, my mom said. Yes, and there's a rumor that his family's accident was no accident, but no one can say for sure. This is going to get messy, Addie, my dad added. I shrugged. I don't mind getting messy to get what I want as long as Ethan pays the price. Later that night, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker below. Derek entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of tea. Still awake? He asked. Couldn't sleep, I said, taking the cup. Did you know about Ian Creighton? He nodded. Yeah, I read about the accident. Poor guy. I'm going to see him. Derek stared at me. You're serious? Dead serious, I said, my tone even. Ethan thinks he's won. He thinks I'm gone. But I'll rebuild everything from the ashes, and I'll start with what he wants most. He leaned against the window. You're planning something big, aren't you? I looked at him. Would you stop me if I am? He smiled sadly. No, I just don't want to lose you again. I reached out and squeezed his hand. You won't. This time I'm the one holding the fire. The next morning, I took my first unassisted step. My legs trembled. My knees almost gave out, but I didn't fall. The nurse gasped. Adeline, careful. I smiled through the pain. No, don't stop me. Every step hurt. Every muscle screamed, but the image of Ethan and Clara's smiling faces kept me upright. When I finally sat down again, I was breathless but proud. My reflection in the mirror looked stronger, sharper. I whispered to myself, You took everything from me, Ethan. Now I'll take it all back. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that was a promise I would keep. Adeline's POV. The rest of the week, I kept practicing how to walk without any assistance. It was hell at first, but eventually I got used to the pain and stopped crying out. You're doing so well, Addie, my mom will always say. By the time the week was over, I was finally able to walk comfortably. I still felt a little bit of pain, but it was bearable, and I didn't keep wincing again. The following week, I was discharged from the hospital after they declared that I was fit and just had to continue with the physical therapy treatment. What do you want to do now? My dad asked me when I got home. I shrugged. I'd like to go see Ian Creighton, I answered. My father hesitated. Addie, are you sure about this? Going back to New York and getting into a marriage of convenience with Ian Creighton, especially with his condition. I shook my head. Dad, I'm doing this. I am taking control of my life, and I'm going to make Ethan and Clara pay. I'm not going to be able to pretend like everything is all right. My father nodded. I understand, Princess. If that's what you want, I'll get the jet ready. Thank you, I said, smiling at him. The private jet touched down in New York at sunrise. The sky was pale gold, the city beneath it loud and alive. It felt strange to be back to the place where I'd once dreamed of starting a new life with Ethan. Now I was here to ruin his life with Clara. My father sat beside me, reading through some documents. Remember, he said without looking up, you don't need to push yourself. Ian's situation is delicate. I turned to him. You mean he's not the man he used to be? He sighed. That's one way to put it. Just be kind. He barely recognizes people, sometimes forgets his own name. His assistant Leo handles most things. I understand, I said quietly, though a part of me didn't. How could someone so powerful become so fragile overnight? We arrived at the Creighton estate by noon. The mansion was vast and quiet. The front doors opened before we reached them. A man in a neat black suit stepped out and smiled politely. Mr. Hayes, Miss Adeline, he greeted, his voice even. I'm Leo. Mr. Creighton is expecting us. The words sounded strange coming from someone who supposedly didn't remember much. Leo led us inside. The mansion smelled faintly of wood polish and lavender. Portraits lined the hall. Ian's parents, elegant and proud. I remembered them from long ago, smiling and welcoming. Seeing their faces again made something ache inside me. Please, this way, Leo said, stopping at a pair of tall glass doors. He opened them slowly. Ian Creighton sat on the floor by a large window, surrounded by scattered puzzles and a wooden chess set. The sunlight fell across his hair, making it shine like gold dust. He looked older than I remembered, but somehow softer, like a man trapped in a boy's quiet world. He didn't look up when we entered. He just kept moving the chess pieces around, mumbling softly to himself. Leo smiled faintly. Mr. Creighton, you have visitors. Ian turned his head lazily, his blue eyes unfocused at first, then curious. Visitors? Yes, Leo said. Mr. Hayes and his daughter, Adeline. Ian blinked, his gaze moving to me. His lips parted slightly, almost like he was trying to remember something. Then, with a small smile, he held up a pawn. Do you play? I blinked. Chess? He nodded. You can be white. My father hesitated, whispering, He doesn't speak much to strangers. That's a good sign. Leo motioned for us to sit. Please, make yourselves comfortable. Ian placed the pawn in front of me and said softly, Your turn. I smiled awkwardly, moving a piece. Okay. He watched me move, then frowned. That's wrong. You can't do that. I can't? He shook his head seriously, like a child explaining a rule. No, that piece is supposed to protect the king. You left him alone. His voice was quiet, but something about the way he said it made me pause. I'll try again, I said. He nodded, satisfied, and went back to rearranging the pieces. Leo cleared his throat. Mr. Creighton has been improving gradually. Some days he remembers faces, some days he doesn't. My father smiled kindly. He seems peaceful. That's good. Ian hummed, reaching for a small wooden airplane from the table. He spun its propeller absent-mindedly. Planes go fast, he said suddenly. Too fast sometimes. Leo's jaw tightened slightly. Yes, sir, they do. My father and I exchanged a look. The air shifted for a second, something unspoken passing between Leo and his employer, but it vanished just as quickly when Ian smiled again. Do you like planes? He asked me. I guess I do, I said carefully. He nodded slowly. We can play with them later. My father chuckled, not unkindly. He seems to like you already. I tried to smile, but the heaviness in my chest grew. This man, this boy, was supposed to be my partner. I'd come here thinking of business, of strategy, of revenge. But seeing him now, sitting cross-legged on the floor with his toys and faraway eyes, made my heart twist in guilt. When my father left to talk with Leo about the formalities, I stayed behind for a moment. Ian was still playing with his puzzle pieces. Do you remember me? I asked softly. He looked up. Should I? I swallowed hard. We used to know each other when we were younger. He tilted his head, as if thinking. Maybe I forgot. I forget things a lot. I forced a smile. That's okay. I remember enough for both of us. He gave a small, distracted laugh. Then you can tell me all the stories. His tone was light, almost careless, but his eyes, for a fleeting second, didn't look lost at all. They looked sharp, like he was aware and watching. But then it was gone. He turned back to his chessboard and said quietly, You can move the knight now. When we left the estate that evening, I looked back once through the car window. Ian was standing by the glass doors, the little airplane still in his hand. Poor boy, my father murmured beside me. He doesn't even realize what he's lost. I stared at Ian's distant figure. Maybe he does, I said softly. Maybe he just doesn't show it. Ian's pav. The moment the car carrying Adeline disappeared through the gates, I dropped the wooden airplane I'd been spinning. It clattered against the marble floor, the sound breaking the stillness like a gunshot. Leo quietly shut the doors behind him. You can stop pretending now. I stretched my arms, wincing. Finally, I was 2 seconds away from choking on that act. He smirked. You almost smiled too much. I thought you'd forgotten how to blink. I rolled my eyes. You try acting like a 5-year-old for 2 hours while a woman studies you like a specimen. From what I saw, Leo said, walking toward the window, you handled it well. I scoffed. She looked at me like I was a broken doll. I could practically see the pity dripping off her face. Leo shrugged. That's the point. Let them think you're harmless. Harmless, I repeated bitterly. That's what people called my father, and he ended up buried under a pile of lies. Leo's expression softened. You'll find out what happened, Ian. We're close. I leaned against the desk, crossing my arms. Close isn't enough. Someone planned that crash, Leo. Someone wanted the Creighton family gone. The question is, why and who? He sighed. We've gone over this for months. It could be the board. It could be one of your father's competitors or your extended family. We're waiting on the new security report. Or it could be her, I said quietly. Leo frowned. Adeline? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the window and stared at the empty driveway. She walks back into my life after 2 years of silence, suddenly eager to honor an engagement everyone forgot about. And she just happens to show up when my family's company is unstable. That's not coincidence. Or, Leo said carefully, it's guilt. I turned to him. You don't believe that. He smiled faintly. I don't know what to believe yet. But I saw her eyes, Ian. She didn't look like someone who came here to betray you. She looked lost. She always did, I said quietly, even when she left. Leo poured us each a glass of water and sat across from me. So what do you want to do? Nothing, I said. Not yet. Let her think I'm weak. Let her pity me. People reveal more when they think you can't understand them. He nodded slowly. Smart, but you'll have to keep the act perfect. I've been doing that for 6 months, I reminded him. It's the only reason I'm still alive. The fewer people who know I'm not the fool they think I am, the easier it is to listen. He leaned forward. You really think the same people who caused the crash are still watching you? I know they are, I said flatly. The estate cameras were tampered with last week. Someone's been leaking information from the office, and now Adeline shows up out of nowhere? I don't believe in timing that neat. Leo's brow furrowed. You don't trust her at all? I let out a quiet laugh. Trust her? Leo, she married Ethan Morales. The same man who tried to buy our patents 3 times, the same man my father refused to partner with. She stood by him while he humiliated our family at that shareholders meeting. So no, I don't trust her. Leo folded his arms. You sound like you still care. I froze. Don't start. He smiled faintly. You talk about her too much for someone who doesn't care. She was a friend, I said tightly, before she became a stranger, before she left without a word. Leo raised a brow. And now she's here to marry you. Exactly, I said, bitterness edging my voice. Who does that? Who decides to marry a man who can barely string a sentence together? Either she's desperate or she's dangerous. Or both, Leo offered. I laughed quietly. Probably both. Leo picked up the wooden airplane from the floor and placed it on the table. So what now? We watch, I said. She's moving into the guest wing tomorrow, right? Yes. Good. Keep an eye on her. Every call, every visitor, every message. If she's working for someone, I want to know who. And if she's not, I looked up at him. Then I'll have to decide what to do with her. Leo studied me for a long moment. And if she finds out the truth that you're not sick, not confused, then she'll know more than I want her to, I said quietly. And that won't end well for either of us. We sat in silence for a while. The clock ticked softly. Outside, the lights of New York glittered through the glass, bright and unreachable. Leo finally said, Do you ever get tired of pretending? All the time. Then why keep doing it? I looked at the chessboard on the table, the same one I'd used to test her reactions earlier. Her fingerprints still faintly marked the pawn she'd touched. Because it's the only way to survive, I said. When everyone thinks you're harmless, they stop guarding their secrets. He nodded slowly. And you think Adeline has secrets? I smiled faintly. Everyone does, Leo. I just want to know what hers costs. Leo stood and gathered the files from the desk. I'll tighten security and update the reports. Good, I said, walking to the window again. Make sure no one knows about the lab results. If word gets out that my cognitive tests came back normal, this game ends. He gave a short nod. Understood. As he left the room, I looked back at the chessboard. Her knight was still mid-move, caught between strategy and surrender. Adeline Hayes, I whispered. You're playing the wrong game. I moved my piece, the queen, forward, capturing hers in one clean stroke. Let's see if you can keep up. Adeline's pav. Are you sure it's not too soon? I let out a small sigh as I stared at my parents. They had worry shining in their eyes. I'm fine, I promise, I assured them. I just need to do this. I'm fully recovered now. If you need anything, just let us know, my dad said. I nodded. Sure. Derek drove me to Creighton Mansion. When he pulled up into the driveway, he turned to me with a frown. Are you sure about this, Addie? He asked. I could see the worried look in his eyes as I smiled. Yes, Derek. Besides, it's not like Ian can hurt me. I just have to take control of his company so I can achieve what I want. He kissed my forehead and walked me to the door before leaving. Moving into the Creighton Mansion felt like stepping into another world. The maid showed me to a wide, bright room with long curtains and a balcony that overlooked the garden. Mr. Creighton asked that you be given the East Wing, she said politely. Breakfast is served at 8, lunch at 1, dinner at 7. Thank you, I said softly. Later that morning, Leo came to escort me to the sitting room. Ian was already there, sitting cross-legged on the couch, turning the pages of a picture book. He looked up when I entered and smiled. You came, I smiled back. Of course, you live in a palace. Who wouldn't come? He tilted his head. Palace? It's just a word, I said, sitting opposite him. You have a big house. He grinned, proud of himself. It's my house. Yes, I said, watching him. It's your house. Leo placed a tray of tea on the table. Mr. Creighton wanted you to feel comfortable, Miss Hayes. Adeline, I corrected gently. He nodded. Adeline. Ian poked at the sugar bowl, frowning when some spilled on the table. Oops, I smiled faintly and handed him a napkin. You're fine. He dabbed at it carefully, like it was a serious task. Leo says sugar makes things sticky. That's true, I said. Sticky and messy. He looked up, like people. I blinked, surprised by the odd comparison. What? He just smiled, turning another page of his book. Sticky people. Leo cleared his throat, stepping in smoothly. He likes making new words. I chuckled, though something about Ian's tone lingered in my head. After tea, Leo excused himself to take a call, leaving me alone with Ian. He picked up a small puzzle from the side table, trying to fit the pieces together. Do you want to play? Not right now, I said softly. I'm thinking. He looked up. Thinking about what? About people who hurt me. He paused, curious. Bad people? Yes, I whispered. Very bad people. He tilted his head. You're sad? I was, I said, staring out the window. Not anymore. He pushed another puzzle piece in place. What will you do? I hesitated, then laughed quietly. You wouldn't understand. He smiled childlike. Tell me, I sighed. You really want to know? He nodded eagerly. I leaned closer, my voice low. There's a man who took everything from me. My home, my name, my peace. And now he's living happily like nothing happened. I plan to take it all back. Ian's hands stilled on the puzzle. How? I smiled faintly. By making him lose what he loves most. He stared at me for a long moment, his blue eyes calm and almost knowing. Then he said softly, That's mean. I laughed. Yes, it is. Bad people don't like losing, he said, fiddling with the puzzle again. They fight back. I hope he does, I murmured. I want him to. He glanced up again, almost like he was studying me. You sound angry. I am, I said simply. Wouldn't you be? He shrugged, pretending to be distracted by the puzzle. Leo says anger makes people heavy. Then I'll carry the weight until I'm done. He looked up suddenly. Done with what? With making things right. He nodded slowly, as if he accepted my strange grown-up talk, then pointed at a missing puzzle piece. This one doesn't fit, I smiled. Try turning it. He did, and it snapped into place perfectly. His face lit up like a child's. See? Fixed. Exactly, I said softly. Sometimes you just need to turn things around. For a brief moment, he looked straight at me, and I saw something sharp behind that innocent smile, something that didn't belong to a man lost in his own mind. But then he blinked, looked down, and went back to his puzzle. Maybe I imagined it. That evening, I stood by my window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Ethan's name flashed across a billboard, Morales Enterprises Expanding Horizons. I laughed quietly. Enjoy it while it lasts. A knock came at the door. Come in, I said. Ian peeked inside, holding one of his wooden planes. Want to see my plane? I smiled. Sure. He walked in, holding it up proudly. It can fly, but only a little. Like people, I teased. We only fly for a little before we fall. He giggled. You say funny things? Do I? He nodded and placed the plane in my hand. Don't break it. I won't. He gave me one last smile and walked out. I turned the tiny plane over in my palm. It looked harmless, almost silly. But deep down, I had an odd feeling about Ian. Something didn't just sit right. Ian's pav. Leo's voice echoed softly as he followed me down the corridor. You were quiet through dinner. That's not like you. I was thinking, I said. About Adeline? I shot him a look. You sound like you're enjoying this. He smiled faintly. It's rare to see someone get under your skin. She doesn't, I said quickly. She's just unpredictable. He didn't believe me. I stopped walking. She talks too much, I said. About Ethan, about revenge, about things she shouldn't. But there's something else. She's careful, even when she pretends not to be. Every word she says feels chosen. Leo crossed his arms. You think she's lying? I think she's playing a role, I replied. Just like I am. Before Leo could answer, footsteps echoed behind us. Then came a sharp voice I hadn't heard in weeks. There you are. We turned. My uncle, Richard Creighton, stood in the doorway with his wife, Eleanor, and their son, Mason. They looked furious. Uncle, I said quietly, keeping my voice light. Hi. He looked me over with disgust. Don't hi me, boy. What's this nonsense I hear about you getting married? Leo stepped forward immediately. Mr. Creighton, perhaps we could discuss this later. No, we'll discuss it now, Eleanor snapped. How dare you, Leo? You've been filling his head with ideas again, haven't you? Leo stayed calm. Mr. Ian makes his own decisions. Mason laughed. That's funny. Last I checked, he could barely remember how to spell his own name. Richard glared at me. Who gave you permission to bring that Hayes girl here? Do you even understand what marriage means, Ian? I blinked slowly, putting on the dazed expression I'd practiced for months. Marriage means cake? Mason snorted. God, he's gone. Stop it, Leo said firmly. Eleanor turned to Leo sharply. You think you're in charge now? Don't forget who pays the staff here. Her words burned, but I kept my smile faint, innocent. Leo doesn't like shouting. Of course he doesn't, Richard said coldly. He's protecting his paycheck. They were circling like vultures, voices cutting the air. Every insult landed on me like small blows, but I didn't move. I had to stay in character. Then Mason stepped closer, his grin mean. Tell me, cousin, do you even remember your parents, or did the crash fry that part of your brain too? Leo stepped between us. Enough. But Mason shoved past him and slapped the small toy plane out of my hand. You shouldn't even have control of this estate. The sound of the toy hitting the ground made something snap inside me. For a split second, I almost forgot to act. My hands curled into fists. My pulse roared in my ears. I wanted to stand up, to look him in the eye, to remind him exactly whose house this was. But I didn't. I just stared at the fallen plane and whispered, That was mine. Mason scoffed. Then pick it up, idiot. Stop it. The voice came from behind them. It was clear, sharp, and cut through the tension like a blade. Everyone turned. Adeline stood at the doorway, her eyes blazing. What is going on here? She demanded. Richard straightened. We're having a family conversation. It looks more like 3 adults bullying 1 man, she said coldly. Eleanor's lips twisted. You have no right to speak to us that way. You're just the nurse who... I'm his wife, Adeline cut in. The room went silent. She walked forward slowly, stopping beside me. And if you have questions about our marriage, you can ask me directly instead of shouting at him like cowards. Richard's face reddened. You're out of line. No, she said, her voice low but firm. You are. He's still grieving his parents, and this is how you treat him? Shame on you. Mason opened his mouth, but she stepped closer. And you, she said sharply, pick up that toy. He blinked. What? Pick it up. For a moment, no one moved. Then, scowling, Mason bent and picked up the wooden airplane, placing it back on the table. Adeline took it and handed it to me. Here, Ian. I nodded slowly, murmuring, Thank you. She turned back to them. If any of you come near him again without my permission, I'll have you escorted out. Permanently. Richard's eyes blazed. You think you can threaten us in our own family home? I'm not threatening, she said, calm and steady. I'm promising. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. Then Richard muttered something under his breath and motioned for his wife and son to leave. They stormed out, slamming the door behind them. The room fell quiet. Leo exhaled slowly. That was impressive. Adeline gave a tired smile. They needed someone to put them in their place. Then she looked down at me. Are you all right, Ian? I nodded, hugging the wooden plane to my chest. They were loud. She crouched beside me. They won't be loud anymore. Her voice was softer now and warm. It was the kind of tone no one had used with me in a long time. Thank you, I whispered. She smiled gently. You don't have to thank me. You didn't deserve that. Leo watched her silently as she left the room. When the door closed, he turned to me. You handled that well. I didn't answer. I was still staring at the door she'd walked through. Finally, I said quietly, She surprised me. Leo raised a brow. In a good way? I don't know, I admitted. But for the first time, I'm not sure she's the enemy I thought she was. Leo smiled faintly. Careful, Ian. You might start liking her again. I looked down at the plane in my hands. That's what worries me. Adeline's pav. After I got rid of Ian's troublesome family, I made sure he was all right before I left. His family reminded me of when Ethan's family used to mock me, and I would just take it because I thought Ethan loved me and I was doing the right thing. But never again will I stand and watch someone else get bullied, especially someone like Ian who can't stand up for himself. He was so painfully clueless as they mocked him. However, I didn't see Ian for the rest of the day. Leo said he needed to rest. The following day, I had just finished taking my shower when a small knock sounded on the door and Leo poked his head in. "Miss Adeline, would you like to accompany Ian for his checkup at the hospital?" Leo asked. I nodded. Of course. The drive to the hospital was quiet, except for the soft hum of the tires on the road. Ian sat beside me in the back seat, watching raindrops slide across the window. Leo kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "Are you nervous?" I asked softly. Ian shook his head. "Hospitals smell funny." I smiled. "They do." He pressed his palm to the glass, tracing the drops as they raced down. "Do you think they'll give me candy again?" "I'll make sure of it," I said. Leo chuckled. "Only if you behave, sir." Ian grinned, wide and innocent. "I always behave." He really did sound like a child, so sweet that it almost hurt to hear him talk. Yet something about the way he looked out the window made me wonder. At the hospital, the doctor welcomed us with a professional smile. "Good morning, Mr. Creighton. I see we're improving." Ian tilted his head. "Improving means good?" "Yes," the doctor said kindly. "It means your results look better than before." Leo handed over a file. "He's been keeping up with the therapy schedule." The doctor nodded. "That's excellent. We'll reduce some of the medication next month." Ian looked at me suddenly. "Less medicine means more candy?" I laughed. "If that's your motivation, then yes." The doctor smiled, but the door burst open before he could answer. Richard Creighton strode in with his usual storm of irritation, Eleanor on his arm and Mason trailing behind. "Still wasting money on checkups?" Richard barked. "He's not going to get better, Leo. Why keep pretending?" Leo stiffened. "Sir, this is a private." "Private," Eleanor sneered. "Nothing's private when the family fortune pays for it." Mason looked Ian over and smirked. "He looks the same to me, maybe worse." I stepped closer to Ian's chair instinctively. "You don't need to talk about him like he's not here." Richard turned on me. "I understand you're his new wife, but shut the fuck up. You're an opportunist who thinks marrying a Creighton makes her important." My hands clenched. "I'm his wife because I choose to be. You're in a hospital, not a courtroom. Try using indoor voices." For a heartbeat, even the doctor went silent. Richard's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Mrs. Creighton. You're only here because I allow it." Ian's voice broke the tension. "Can we go home now?" "I'm hungry." Eleanor rolled her eyes. "See, a child. And you want to pretend he can run a company." Richard looked at Leo. "There's a board meeting this afternoon. Bring him. I want the staff to see the condition of their so-called CEO." Leo hesitated. "Sir, that's not a request," Richard snapped. "Maybe when they see what's become of him, they'll stop asking when he's coming back." He turned and left without waiting for an answer. After he left, I turned to Leo. "Are you seriously going to take him to the meeting?" Leo shrugged. "It's not like I have a choice, miss. I have to take him there or there's a higher risk he might lose the company." "I'll join you," I stated. The meeting room smelled of paper and stale coffee when we arrived that afternoon. 12 executives sat around the long table, whispering behind their folders. Richard stood at the head, already speaking. "Thank you all for coming. As you can see, my nephew is present today," he announced, gesturing toward Ian. "We'll settle this question of leadership once and for all." Ian was seated beside me, his fingers busy with a small wooden puzzle Leo had slipped into his hands. He seemed calm, detached. I envied his ability to ignore them. Richard continued, "The Creighton Group needs strong direction. My late brother's son is not capable of providing that. I've been acting chairman for months and intend to remain so." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. One man asked cautiously, "What about Mr. Ian's shares?" Richard smiled thinly. "He won't even notice what's being signed." That was it. I stood up. "You're wrong," I said, my voice cutting through the whispers. "He notices everything you say." The room went still. Richard blinked. "Mrs. Creighton, this is a business meeting." "Then you should behave like businessmen, not schoolyard bullies," I said. "You've spent months hiding behind his condition to steal his position. If you're so capable, why are you afraid of him sitting in the same room?" Gasps fluttered around the table. Richard's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone." "No," I said simply. "Watch yours. You talk about him like he's worthless, but every contract you sign still bears his name. Without Ian, you're just a man with borrowed power." Eleanor slammed her folder shut. "How dare you?" Ian tugged gently on my sleeve. Addie, he whispered, eyes wide. Are they mad? I looked down at him and softened. They're just loud, Ian. Don't worry. He smiled faintly. I don't like loud. Neither do I said. Richard's voice cut in. See? He's babbling. You think that can run a billion-dollar company? I turned back to the table. You're right. He's not ready to run it yet. But the only reason he's not ready is because people like you keep rooting for him to... No one spoke. Even Mason looked uneasy. Leo stepped forward quietly. Mrs. Cretan is correct. Legally, Ian remains the majority shareholder. Any decision to remove him requires his written consent. Richard glared at him. And you'd risk your job for her? Leo didn't flinch. For the truth, sir. A heavy silence filled the room. Finally, Richard scoffed. This meeting is over. Enjoy playing nurse, Mrs. Cretan. The adults will handle the business. He stormed out, Eleanor and Mason following close behind. When the doors closed, the other executives started whispering again, this time softer and respectful. I exhaled slowly and turned to Ian. Hey, I said, you okay? He blinked at me, holding up his puzzle. I finished it. I stared, then smiled. Of course you did. Leo watched us both with an unreadable expression. That was brave, I shrugged. Someone had to say it. As we left the meeting room, Ian walked beside me, humming to himself. When we reached the elevator, he tugged at my sleeve again. Addie? He said quietly. Yes? He smiled, small and almost secret. Thank you. I smiled back, noticing how his eyes lingered on the executives through the closing elevator doors. Adeline's POV. The drive back from the company was too quiet. Ian sat beside me, fingers playing with the same wooden puzzle he had finished earlier. He wasn't humming this time. Are you all right? I asked softly. He nodded without looking up. They were loud again. I know, I said. They shouldn't have been. He pushed a piece into place. Did I do bad? No. I smiled faintly. You did perfect. He looked up finally, eyes wide and uncertain. You shouted. I laughed a little. Yeah, I did. Loud, he said, like he was testing the word. Only because they were mean to you. He tilted his head. Mean people should be quiet. I wish they were. He went silent, concentrating on his puzzle again. The rest of the ride passed that way, me watching him pretending not to notice. When we got home, Leo met us in the foyer. The doctor called, he said. He was impressed with Ian's progress. Ian smiled faintly. I'm impressive. Yes, sir, Leo said, smiling back. I touched Ian's arm gently. Why don't you rest? I'll talk with Leo for a bit. He nodded, already distracted by the little plane Leo handed him before walking upstairs. I waited until his footsteps faded before turning to Leo. He's not okay, Leo. Leo's polite smile slipped. He's stable, that's something. Stable isn't enough. I crossed my arms. You saw what happened today. His uncle is practically running the company into the ground. They're taking advantage of him, and he doesn't even realize it. Leo sighed. I realize it, but the board listens to Richard because he's loud and confident. Legally, Ian still owns everything, but no one wants to follow someone they think isn't capable. Then we make them believe he has someone capable standing beside him. Leo frowned. Meaning? I met his eyes. Meaning me. He blinked. Yes, Mrs. Cretan, with all due respect. Adeline, I corrected. Adeline, he said carefully, you're already his wife. I shook my head. Not legally. The ceremony we had was symbolic, arranged by our families. There's no court record, no legal proof. He hesitated. That's true. So we make it legal. He studied me. You want a civil marriage certificate? Yes. If I'm legally recognized as his wife, I can act on his behalf until he recovers. I can sign documents, attend board meetings, and protect his interests. Leo folded his arms. You realize how that sounds? The board will think you're trying to seize control. Let them think whatever they want, I said quietly. At least it'll stop Richard from draining the company dry while Ian sits helpless. Leo paced for a moment, weighing it. And you're doing this out of duty? I met his gaze squarely. Out of loyalty. Someone has to protect him. You know I'm right. He didn't answer right away. The ticking clock filled the space between us. Finally, he exhaled. I'll look into it. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. He gave a small nod. But Adeline, if we do this, people will talk. They already do. He smiled faintly. True. Later that night, I went to check on Ian. His room was dim except for the soft glow of a bedside lamp. He was sitting on the floor, the toy plane resting in his lap. Hey, I said quietly. You're not asleep yet? He shook his head. The stars are out. I followed his gaze to the window. The sky shimmered with scattered light. They're pretty, I said. He nodded. Do you think my mom can see them? The question caught me off guard. I think she can. He smiled faintly. Then she can see me too. My throat tightened. Yes, she can. He turned toward me. You were mad today. Only because they were rude, I said. He thought for a second. You're like Leo when he's angry. Your eyebrows go up. I laughed softly. Do they? He nodded solemnly. Like mountains. Then I'll try to keep them down. He looked at me again, his voice suddenly small. Are they going to take my house? I froze. Who told you that? I heard Uncle Richard on the phone, he said quietly. He said maybe they can sell it if I forget about it. My hands curled into fists. They won't sell anything, I promise. He studied me for a moment, his expression open and trusting. You promise? I promise, I said softly. He smiled again and turned back to the window. Okay, I believe you. I stood there watching him until his breathing grew slow and even. Something in my chest ached. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or anger or both. As I left the room, Leo was waiting in the hallway. You really care about him, he said quietly. I didn't answer. He nodded like he understood anyway. I'll start the paperwork tomorrow. Thank you, Leo. He gave a small smile. Just don't forget, this isn't going to be easy. The family will fight it. Let them. I turned and glanced back at Ian's door. They'll lose. Ian's pav. Leo came in early. The sun wasn't even up yet, and he already had his briefcase in hand. You didn't sleep, he said. I smiled faintly. You didn't either. He sat across from me at the desk. I spoke with the lawyer. Adeline's idea is legally possible. If you sign a simple authorization, she can act as your representative. The marriage would make her authority clear to the board. I turned one of the chess pieces in my fingers. And you think I should agree? I think, he said slowly, that you already decided. I gave a short laugh. Maybe. He studied me. You trust her now? I don't trust anyone completely, I said. But she stood up for me twice. That's more than my family's done in a year. Leo nodded. Richard's furious. He said he won't recognize the marriage. Then it must be the right thing to do, I murmured. He smiled. You really believe she means well? I hesitated. I used to think Adeline only came back for power, but she looks at me differently now. Not like I'm broken, like I'm human. Maybe I owe her a chance. Leo leaned forward. So we go through with it? Yes. I pushed the pawn across the board. Schedule the court for this afternoon. The courthouse was smaller than I remembered. White walls, a dull echo when people spoke. Leo handled most of the talking. I sat beside Adeline at the long wooden table, hands folded. The clerk read the papers. This is a civil union, recognized by state law. Mr. Leo Gardner will act as guardian and witness on behalf of Mr. Creighton. Leo nodded. Confirmed. Adeline glanced at me. Are you sure about this? I smiled, soft and simple. You said it'll help, right? It will, she said gently. Then I'm sure. She looked at me for a moment longer before signing her name. Her hand trembled only once. When the clerk slid the papers to me, I picked up the pen slowly. I wrote my name in small, careful letters. The clerk collected the documents. Congratulations, you're legally married. Adeline exhaled, almost laughing. That was faster than I expected. Leo thanked the clerk and gathered the papers. We'll file copies with the company by morning. Richard's voice echoed in my head. He won't even notice what's being signed. I smiled to myself. He'll notice soon enough. Outside, the winter air bit through my coat. Adeline wrapped her scarf tighter and turned to me. Do you want to go straight home? I shook my head. Can we stop somewhere first? Leo raised an eyebrow. Where to, sir? The park. Adeline looked surprised. You like parks? I shrugged. They're quiet. Leo nodded and led the way. We walked along the nearly empty path, leaves crunching under our shoes. A few children played near the fountain, their laughter carrying in the cold air. Adeline watched them for a long time. I used to come here, she said, when things got too hard. I tilted my head. Hard how? She smiled faintly. People, life, losing things. I looked at her face. She looked strong, sad, and beautiful in a way that made something twist inside me. You lose a lot? Too much, she whispered. You found some back, I said. She laughed softly. What do you mean? You found me. She blinked, startled, then smiled. That's true. Leo pretended not to hear us. He checked his watch. We should head back. Mr. Richard already called twice. Let him wait, I said quietly. Adeline chuckled. You sound almost serious. Almost, I echoed. The car ride home was mostly silent until she said, you didn't have to agree so easily. I turned to her. Why not? Because you don't know if you can trust me yet, I smiled. Maybe I just want to. She looked out the window. That's dangerous. So is everything worth doing? I said. Her lips parted, like she wanted to answer, but she didn't. She only nodded and looked away again. When we reached the mansion, Leo left us in the hall with a polite bow. I'll deliver the documents to the legal team. Thank you, I said. Adeline watched him disappear down the corridor. Then she turned to me. I guess we're really married now. Guess so, I said lightly. Do we get cake? She laughed this time. You and your cake. Cake makes things official, I said with mock seriousness. Then I'll order one, she said, smiling. Something sweet for a change. Her laughter filled the hall, warm against the cold marble. For a moment I forgot to breathe. When she finally turned toward the stairs, I found my voice. Addie? She paused. Yes? Thank you, I said quietly, for wanting to help. She smiled at me, soft and honest. You don't have to thank me, Ian. We're partners now. That's what partners do. She went upstairs. I watched until the sound of her steps faded. Leo came back down the corridor, carrying his coat. Everything's filed. Congratulations, Mr. Creighton. I nodded absently. He studied me. You're thinking. Maybe she really means it, I said. Maybe she's not like them. Leo smiled slightly. Starting to believe in her? I'm starting, I admitted. For the first time, I feel like someone's on my side. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. You deserve that. Maybe. I looked up toward the staircase again. But I'm not sure she deserves what's coming next. Leo frowned. What do you mean? I shook my head, slipping the wooden plane from my pocket. Just thinking aloud. He didn't press. I turned the plane over in my hands. The world thought I was a child. Adeline thought she'd married one. But the truth was simpler. I'd just learned to wait. And waiting was the strongest move on any board, Adeline's POV. The following morning, I came down to breakfast and found Ian at the table, spooning cereal into his mouth with careful concentration. The staff moved in nervous silence. Morning, I said. He looked up and smiled. Morning, Addie. We're married now. The words made the butler drop a fork. I smiled faintly. Yes, we are. Do we get cake today? He asked. Maybe later, I said. After I visit the company. He nodded, serious. Bring cake back. I'll try. I reached to straighten his collar. You'll be okay with Leo for a few hours? He nodded again. Leo takes good care. Leo appeared at the doorway with his usual calm. Car's ready whenever you are, Mrs. Creighton. I caught the title in his tone and sighed. That still sounds strange. Everyone at the office has already heard, he said quietly. Richard called the legal department at 6 this morning. He's not happy. Of course he isn't. I grabbed my bag. Let's go. The drive into the city was a blur of traffic and cold wind. Leo's phone buzzed nonstop. The board's been summoned. Richard wants a full meeting by 10. He thinks he's still in charge, I muttered. Technically, until the documents are filed, they'll be filed today, I said firmly. I'll make sure of it. Leo gave a small nod. Understood. The elevator doors opened to a wall of whispers. Every employee who caught sight of me looked quickly away, pretending to be busy themselves. The security guards straightened like soldiers as I passed. When I stepped into the boardroom, Richard was already there with Eleanor and Mason. Their expressions could have frozen fire. Well, well, Richard said. The new Mrs. Creighton arrives. I kept walking until I reached my chair. Good morning. Eleanor's voice dripped venom. You must think you're clever snatching a legal marriage before we could stop you. I don't think I'm clever, I said lightly. Just efficient. Mason slammed his hand on the table. You tricked him. Everyone knows Ian doesn't understand what he's signing. I met his glare. Then it's lucky his guardian witnessed everything, isn't it? Richard leaned forward. This is fraud, Adeline. You want power. That's what this is. I smiled. No, Richard. I want protection for my husband and his company. He laughed without humor. Your husband? You mean your puppet? You think a little paper makes you relevant? I'm calling a press conference. By noon, every outlet in New York will know what kind of gold digger. The doors burst open before he could finish. Try it. a calm voice said. Everyone turned. My father stepped into the room, his suit immaculate, his eyes sharp as glass. My mother followed, her heels clicking against the floor like small thunderclaps. Behind them, two assistants carried folders stamped with the Hayes crest. Richard's face was drained of color. Mr. Hayes. Richard, my father said mildly, you've aged poorly. Eleanor stood, flustered. This is a private board meeting. Not anymore, my mother said smoothly. When you threaten our daughter in public, it becomes family business. Richard's mouth opened, then closed again. My father walked to the head of the table. I hear you plan to drag my daughter's name through the media. Before you do, consider this. Every major investor backing your company also has ties to Hayes Holdings. If you embarrass her, you embarrass us. The silence that followed was thick. Eleanor tried to recover. You can't dictate how we run our company. Of course not, my father said evenly. I'm only reminding you what will happen if you forget who signs half your contracts. Mason muttered, This is blackmail. No, my mother said, this is reality. My father turned to me. Adeline, do you have the paperwork? I nodded and handed him the folder Leo had prepared. He slid it across the table toward Richard. The marriage license, notarized. From today, Mrs. Creighton holds power of attorney for her husband. Any action against her is action against the company. Richard stared at it, speechless. Congratulations, my mother said dryly. You finally have a competent Creighton running things. A ripple of quiet laughter passed among a few board members. Richard's fists clenched, but he said nothing. My father smiled, calm again. Now, unless anyone wants to risk their shares, I suggest you adjourn this meeting and allow my daughter to work. He looked at me then, a rare softness in his eyes. Handle it well, Adeline. I will, I said quietly. He nodded once, turned, and walked out with my mother beside him. The moment the doors closed, Richard exploded. This isn't over. You think your parents scare me? They won't always be here to protect you. I met his glare evenly. No, but I will always be here to protect Ian. He glared at Leo. You're part of this too? Leo only smiled. I'm part of the truth. Richard's face went red. You'll regret this. I already have, I said, and gathered my files. The meeting is adjourned. The hallway outside buzzed with whispers as I left the room. I barely heard them. My heart was still pounding from the confrontation. Leo fell into step beside me. That was impressive, he said quietly. It was necessary, I replied. They would have destroyed him. He nodded. And now? Now I make sure they can't. By the time we reached the car, Ian was waiting inside. He looked up as I slid into the seat. Hi, Addie. Did you fight again? I laughed softly. Something like that. He handed me a small paper bag. I saved you cake. I blinked. Cake? He nodded earnestly. You said maybe later. For the first time all day, I smiled. Thank you, Ian. He grinned. Partners share, right? Right, I said, taking a bite. Ian's pav. The rain had started again by the time we reached the mansion. I watched drops chase each other down the window while Leo sorted the papers we'd brought back from the office. She did well, he said at last. I didn't answer. My reflection in the glass looked calm, but inside my thoughts ran circles. She silenced your uncle in front of the whole board, Leo continued. Even your father couldn't have done that with more precision. She was angry, I murmured. Angry can still be right, he said. Richard won't forget today. I turned away from the window. He'll try again. Of course, Leo said, but this time he has to go through her. I smiled faintly. She doesn't scare easily. That's one way to describe it, he said, placing the files on the table. You trusted her. You were right. I didn't trust her, I said softly. I just wanted to see what she'd do. And now you've seen. Yes. I looked toward the hall where her laughter still echoed faintly from the kitchen. And I don't quite know what to make of it. Later, I found her in the library, standing by the tall windows with a cup of tea. The afternoon light cut through the glass, outlining her like a painting. You're hiding, I said. She turned, smiling. Not hiding, cooling off. Your uncle raises my blood pressure. Mine too, I said, making her laugh. Leo said you stayed quiet through the whole meeting, she said. That must have been hard. I shrugged. You were loud enough for both of us. Sorry, she said, though her eyes still glowed with defiance. I don't like seeing them treat you that way. I studied her face. Why do you care? She blinked. Because it's wrong, Ian. No one deserves to be humiliated like that. Even me? She frowned. Especially you. I tilted my head. Even though I act strange sometimes? You're not strange, she said gently. You're just healing. I looked at her a long moment. You believe that? I do, she said. And until you're ready to lead again, I'll make sure they don't take what's yours. Something in her tone, the quiet promise, made my chest tighten. I wanted to tell her I wasn't as helpless as she thought, that I'd been watching, remembering, planning. But the words stayed inside. They didn't belong to this version of me. Instead, I pointed to the chessboard near her elbow. Play? She smiled. You like losing that much? Maybe I'll win today. Big talk, Mr. Creighton. Big hope, I said. We sat opposite each other. Her moves were quick and confident, mine slow and clumsy on purpose. She leaned forward, studying the board. You always guard your queen. She's important, I said. She's not the king. I smiled faintly. Sometimes she saves him. She paused, glancing up. That's a smart answer. Maybe I have smart days, she laughed softly. Then today's one of them. For a while, we just played in silence, the rain whispering against the glass. I caught myself watching the way the light touched her hair, the way her lips curved when she thought she'd trapped me. She didn't notice. When she finally said, "Checkmate," I didn't move the king. I only looked at her and said, "You win again." "Don't look so sad," she teased. "You'll get better." "Maybe I don't want to," I said. She tilted her head. "Why not? Because if I win, the game ends." Her smile faltered just a little, confusion flickering in her eyes. "You really say the strangest things." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe not." Leo came to the doorway. "Dinner's ready." Adeline stood, stretching. "Thanks, Leo. Tell them we'll be there soon." When he left, she turned back to me. "Promise me you'll eat properly tonight. No pushing food around the plate." "I promise." "Good." She hesitated, then brushed a stray lock of hair from my forehead. "You did great today, Ian." The touch was light, almost nothing, but it startled me. No one had touched me with simple kindness in a long time. "Good night, Addie," I said quietly. "It's barely evening," she laughed. "Still," I said. "Good night." She shook her head, smiling as she walked away. When the door closed, Leo reappeared from the corridor, one eyebrow raised. "You let her win again?" "Maybe," I said. He crossed his arms. "You're enjoying this?" "Watching her? Yes." I picked up the chessboard and began resetting the pieces. She doesn't realize every move she makes teaches me something. About business. About her, I said simply. Leo gave a half smile. "And what have you learned?" "That she fights when it's hopeless, that she protects what's hers." I paused, setting the queen back in the center, and that she doesn't know she's already changing things. "Changing what?" "Me." Leo studied me for a moment. "You sound almost happy." "Maybe I am," I said, surprised at my own voice. "For the first time since the crash." He nodded slowly. "Then don't ruin it." I smiled, looking toward the door she'd just used. "I'll try not to." Outside, the rain softened to a whisper. I touched the queen on the board, the one she'd used to corner me, and whispered to the empty room. "Your move, Adeline." Adeline's pav. The office was quiet, except for the tick of the wall clock and the shuffle of papers under my hands. Stacks of reports filled my desk. Half of them were outdated. The rest didn't add up. The numbers looked wrong. Too neat in some places, missing in others. "Leo," I called. He appeared almost instantly. "Yes, Mrs. Creighton?" I pushed the papers toward him. "Look at this quarter's expense sheet." He scanned it quickly, frowning. $2 million for maintenance? That can't be right." "It isn't," I said. "And look, these transfers were approved by Richard." Leo's expression hardened. "He's moving money through shell vendors again." I leaned back, heart pounding. "How long has this been going on?" "Long enough that the board probably suspects, but no one's willing to confront him." "Then I'll do it." I picked up the phone. "Call an emergency meeting." Now. Within an hour, the boardroom filled. Richard and Eleanor walked in last, with Mason swaggering behind them, all three wearing forced smiles. "This better be good," Richard said, dropping into his seat. "Some of us have real work." I stood at the head of the table. "I'm sure you do, especially the kind that involves hiding stolen funds." Murmurs rippled around the room. Richard laughed. "Excuse me?" I placed the reports on the table one by one. 2 million in fake maintenance invoices. 3 different vendor accounts that don't exist. All signed by you. He leaned back, smirking. "That's a bold accusation." It's not an accusation. It's evidence. I slid the next sheet toward him. These accounts trace back to a holding company under Mason's name. All eyes turned to Mason. He froze. That's ridiculous. Really? I asked. Because the payments went to an address registered to your apartment building. Eleanor shot to her feet. You're twisting things. Sit down, Eleanor, I said sharply. You'll have your turn. She gasped, but the room stayed silent. Richard's voice rose. You think you can walk in here, wave a few papers, and destroy us? I don't have to destroy you, Richard, I said evenly. You've been doing that yourself. I turned to the board. For months, funds meant for research and staff bonuses have disappeared. I traced them, and every trail ends here with Richard, his wife, and his son. Gasps echoed around the table. One of the senior directors cleared his throat. Is this true? Richard slammed his fist on the table. You're siding with her. She's manipulating you. I smiled slightly. Then explain the signatures. Explain why your son's account holds 6 figures from company funds. Mason looked at his father, panicked. Dad. Shut up, Richard barked. That was all the confirmation anyone needed. The room erupted, voices shouting, questions flying. I waited until it settled, then said quietly, effective immediately, I'm suspending all 3 of you pending a full audit. Security will escort you from the building. Eleanor's face went pale. You can't do that. I can, I said, and I just did. Richard's glare could have burned through steel. You think this is over? You humiliated me in front of my staff and stole my company. I didn't steal anything, I said. I protected what Ian built. He leaned closer across the table. You'll regret this, girl. You don't know who you're dealing with. I do, I said quietly. A thief. Security entered. Richard's chair scraped back violently as he stood. This isn't over, he growled again, then turned and stormed out. Eleanor followed, muttering curses, and Mason slammed the door behind them hard enough to rattle the glass. The silence that followed was almost peaceful. Leo approached carefully. You handled that perfectly. Not yet, I said. I looked at the stack of incoming proposals on my desk and spotted one marked Morales Enterprises. The sight of Ethan's name brought a cold twist to my stomach. Leo noticed. Do you want me to file that for review? I picked it up, skimmed the first line. Ethan's smooth pitch about partnership, expansion, rebuilding old bridges. My lips curled. No, I said. This one doesn't deserve a file. Before he could ask, I tore the contract straight down the middle, the sound sharp and satisfying. Bridge burned. Leo's eyebrows rose, but he didn't comment. Call the auditors, I said. We're cleaning house. By evening, the office lights had dimmed, the chaos of the day finally quieting. I sat alone in the executive lounge, staring at the city through the glass wall. My head ached. Victory had a strange taste, half sweet, half bitter. Leo appeared in the doorway. You should rest. I will, I said. After a drink. Want company? I smiled faintly. No, I need to be alone for 5 minutes. He nodded. Try not to start another war tonight. No promises, I said, grabbing my coat. The bar near the river was half empty, jazz humming low in the background. I slid onto a stool and ordered something sharp. The first sip burned, but the warmth felt good. For the first time all day, my hands stopped shaking. I stared into the glass, thinking of Ian, of his quiet smile, of the way he said partners share, right? A small smile touched my lips. Then movement outside the window caught my eye. A sleek black car idled at the curb. The passenger door opened, and a woman stepped out in a long coat, dark hair, familiar even from a distance. My stomach dropped. It was Clara. She glanced around quickly, then smiled toward the driver's side. A man stepped out. He had broad shoulders, too familiar arrogance. It was Mason Creighton. For a heartbeat, I couldn't move. I just watched as Clara leaned up, said something I couldn't hear, and pressed her lips against his. His hand slid possessively around her waist as he guided her into the car. I set my glass down carefully, the ice clinking against the rim. Well, I whispered, a cold, disbelieving laugh escaping me. The world really is small. Adeline's POV. The city lights blurred behind me as I left the bar. The rain had eased, but my thoughts hadn't. I dialed Derek before I even reached the car. He answered on the second ring. Addie, you sound weird. I just saw something, I said, sliding into the back seat. Clara, she was with Mason Creighton. They were together. A pause. You're sure? I saw them. Pregnant or not, she was kissing him like she owned him. Derek whistled softly. That's bold. Find out everything, I said. Dates, hotel records, messages, anything that proves it. If Clara's cheating on Ethan with Mason, it's the perfect way to break him. I'll dig, Derek promised. Give me a few hours. Thanks, I said and ended the call. By the time I reached the mansion, the house was warm and quiet again. Ian was on the couch with a puzzle spread across the table, humming off key. Hi, Addie, he said without looking up. Want to help me find the corner piece? Maybe later, I smiled, hanging my coat. Long day. Did you win again? He asked, in a way. I sat beside him. Richard and his family won't be bothering us for a while. That's good, he said, arranging the pieces in a crooked line. Bad people shouldn't play games. You're right, I said softly. Leo came in with a folder. You asked for the audit updates. I nodded. Sit down, Leo. Let me tell you what happened. As I spoke, his face tightened. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. Ian found those discrepancies before his accident. He was about to confront Richard the week everything went wrong. I blinked. So he knew? He did, Leo said. But after the crash, there wasn't much he could do. I glanced at Ian, who was now building a tiny tower from the puzzle pieces, smiling proudly. Then I'm glad I handled it for him. And I'll handle the rest too. Leo gave a small nod. He's lucky you're here. Maybe I'm the lucky one, I said. He's different. Leo's gaze flicked toward Ian. Different, yes, but don't underestimate him. Upstairs, the bedroom lights were soft. I dropped my heels by the bed and stretched. Ian followed me to the doorway, clutching a small toy airplane. Addie, are you tired? A bit. I smiled. I need a shower. He nodded. Okay. I hesitated for a heartbeat, then shrugged off my jacket. He was watching the toy spin in his hand, not me. For a moment, I forgot he might understand more than he showed. I'll be quick, I said, walking toward the bathroom. The sound of running water filled the silence. I left the door partly open, humming under my breath, my mind still on Clara and Mason and all the lies tying our worlds together. When I came out, the room was quiet. Ian's toy plane sat on the nightstand, but he was gone. I slipped into bed, phone beside me, when it vibrated softly. Derek's name flashed on the screen. I answered immediately. Tell me you found something. I did, he said. Clara's been seeing Mason for a long time. Hotel receipts, messages, everything. A satisfied smile curved my lips. Perfect. That's exactly what I needed. Addie, Derek warned, don't do anything reckless. I won't, I said. Good night. I ended the call, still smiling as I turned off the lamp. Finally, something was turning in my favor. It must have been past midnight when a faint sound pulled me from sleep. Voices, low and careful. I froze, listening. They came from the hallway. Can't keep pretending around her, Ian's voice whispered. The softness in it startled me. Gone was the lazy innocence he used during the day. Leo's voice answered, quieter. You need to be patient. I'm trying, Ian said, frustration threading through every word. But she treats me like a child. She doesn't know what she's doing to me. A pause. All day she talks, plans, undresses like I'm invisible. I'm not. His voice dropped even lower. I'm a man, Leo, a full-blooded man, and every time she looks at me like that, I lay still, heart pounding. My throat went dry, my mind racing back through every moment, the laughter, the chess games, his quiet eyes watching me. None of it was childlike. He'd been pretending, all this time. The truth crashed over me so hard I could barely breathe. I pressed a hand to my mouth, fighting the sound that wanted to escape. A single gasp broke the quiet. Ian's pav. I heard her gasp before I even finished the sentence. Leo froze, eyes meeting mine in the dim hallway. She's awake, he whispered. My heart stopped. How much do you think she heard? He gave me a look. Enough. For a second I didn't move. Then I pushed open the bedroom door. Adeline sat upright on the bed, hair falling around her face, eyes blazing with anger and disbelief. The kind of silence that followed could have swallowed air itself. Ian, she said, voice shaking. So you've been lying to me all this time. I swallowed hard. Addie, let me explain. Explain what? She snapped. That you made me look like a fool. That you watched me, laughed at me while I treated you like someone broken? Leo stepped in carefully. Adeline. Don't, she said sharply. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. Both of you deceived me. Addie, please, I said, moving a step closer. It wasn't about you. She laughed bitterly. Wasn't about me. You made me trust you. You made me think you were helpless. Do you have any idea how that feels? I've already been deceived once, and I'm not doing it again. Her voice cracked on the last word. That hurt more than I expected. I wasn't mocking you, I said softly. I had to pretend. Someone killed my parents. Addie, someone tried to kill me. If they knew I was still myself, they would finish the job. She shook her head, tears bright in her eyes. You should have told me. I could have helped you. I couldn't risk it, I said, not until I knew who I could trust. And you decided that wasn't me, she said flatly. That's not. I stopped. The truth hung heavy between us. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. She slid off the bed and grabbed her coat. You don't get to decide who's worthy of truth, Ian. Addie, I reached for her, but she pulled away. I'm not going to be deceived again, she said quietly, and then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a click that sounded like a final line. Leo exhaled slowly. Well, that went about as bad as it could. I sank into the nearest chair, running a hand through my hair. She looked at me like I was the same as him. Him? Ethan, I said. The word tasted bitter. The one who broke her. She's reacting from pain, Ian, you know that. I stared at the empty doorway. She's not wrong to be angry. I should have told her. Leo crossed his arms. Maybe, but trust takes time. I trusted her enough to make her acting CEO, I said. And now she's gone because of this. She didn't leave because of the company, Leo said. She left because you hurt her. I sighed, leaning forward, elbows on my knees. I didn't want to. I know, he said gently, but that's how it looks from her side. For a while, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked softly. The house felt emptier without her laughter echoing down the halls. Leo finally broke the silence. So what now? Do we tell the world you're perfectly sane again? No, I said immediately. Not yet. You're still set on investigating? Yes, I said. Richard's family isn't finished, and if I come out too soon, we lose the element of surprise. Leo nodded slowly. Fair enough, but we can't sit still either. I know. I rubbed my temples. We need a way in. Actually, he said, pulling out his tablet, Richard and Eleanor are hosting their anniversary party next week. It's the perfect cover. Everyone who matters will be there. I raised an eyebrow. You're thinking of infiltration? He smiled faintly. We both are. The next morning I sat in my office, staring at the same page of a report for 20 minutes without reading a word. Leo walked in and stopped at the doorway. You haven't moved, he said. Didn't feel like it. Thinking about her? I looked up slowly. Is it that obvious? He smirked. You're sighing like a man in a romance movie. Very obvious. I gave a small laugh despite myself. I messed up, Leo. Probably, he said easily, but that's what you do best. Thanks, I muttered, shaking my head. He leaned on the desk. You know, most people would say it's not worth chasing after someone who called them a liar. She had every right, I said quietly. If I were her, I'd hate me too. Leo's teasing smile softened. So what are you going to do? Find her, I said. Apologize. He lifted an eyebrow. Ah, the noble plan. I can't think straight without her around, I admitted. It's strange. You mean you care? I hesitated. He grinned. You're in love with her. I should have denied it. Instead, I smiled. Maybe, he echoed. Fine, I said, laughing quietly. Yes. Leo laughed too. There it is. The great Ian Creighton brought down by a woman. Not brought down, I said, standing. Reminded I'm alive. Leo studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, then. Let's go get her. I froze. Now? He shrugged. Why not? You're useless when you're sulking. I stared at him, then started laughing again. You're impossible. And you're in love, he said. That makes us even. Ian's POV. The Hayes estate looked exactly as I remembered from photographs. Leo parked at the entrance, glancing at me. You're sure about this? No, I said, but I'm doing it anyway. Before we even reached the front steps, Derek appeared, hands in his pockets, jaw tight, eyes like steel. You've got some nerve showing up here, he said. I need to talk to your sister, I said evenly. She doesn't need to hear another lie. Leo tried to step forward. Mr. Hayes? Derek raised a hand. No, Leo, this is between him and me. I met his stare without backing down. You can hit me later if it helps, but I'm not leaving until I talk to her. He studied me for a long second. You fooled her once. I didn't fool her, I said quietly. I protected myself, wrongly maybe, but not out of malice. He laughed dryly. That's what liars say before they start sounding noble. Then let me sound noble, I said. Just let me see her. Derek's expression didn't soften, but something in my voice must have convinced him. He stepped aside. 5 minutes. If she tells me to throw you out, I will. Fair, I said. The study smelled of old books and tea. Adeline stood by the window in a cream sweater, her hair loose. She didn't turn when I walked in. Derek, I said, I'm not. She stopped when she saw me. Oh, her tone was cool. So the patient walks. I managed a small smile. Apparently. Silence stretched. The tick of the mantel clock filled it. She crossed her arms. You shouldn't have come. Probably not, I said. But you left before I could explain. I heard enough. Maybe not everything. She raised an eyebrow. Is there more to the part where you lied to me for weeks? Yes, I said. The part where I didn't want to. That made her look at me. Then why did you? Because pretending was the only way to stay alive. I took a slow step forward. The night of the crash wasn't random. My parents were killed for something inside the company. The same people still work there. If they knew I was fine, I wouldn't have lasted a month. She folded her arms tighter. So you decided to test everyone, including me. I was wrong, I said simply. You didn't deserve that. Her laugh was small and bitter. You sound like Ethan when he apologized. That hit harder than I expected. I'm not him. Prove it, she said. I'm here, I answered. Not hiding, not acting, just me. She looked away. That's not proof, that's guilt. Maybe, I said, but it's a start. For a long moment she said nothing. The wind outside rattled the windows, soft and hollow. Do you know what it felt like? She asked finally. Thinking you were fragile, trying to protect you, only to realize you were stronger than everyone in the room? I nodded slowly. I never wanted you to feel small, but you made me feel stupid. I know, I said quietly, and I hate that I did. She turned to the window again, voice lower now. You're lucky Derek didn't throw you into the fountain. I think he's still considering it. That made her almost smile, but she hid it quickly. Leo knocked softly and stepped inside. Everything okay? No, I said, but it's better than silence. Adeline shot him a look. You're just as guilty. He nodded. Probably, but I was following orders. I should fire you both, she said. Then who'd keep the company running while you're mad at us? He asked lightly. Her eyes narrowed, but the edge of anger in them finally dulled. You two are unbelievable, Leo grinned. He gets that from me. Out, she said, pointing at the door. Leo bowed slightly. Gladly. He slipped out, closing it behind him. I didn't come here to defend myself, I said. I came to tell you the truth. I need your help, Addie. Not as a cover, not as an act, as my partner. She turned, studying me carefully. Partner? In this investigation, and maybe in everything else. Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed steady. You really think I'll trust you again that easily? No, I said, but I'm asking anyway. She sighed, walking past me toward the door. You're impossible. So are you, I said. She stopped, half smiling. I'll think about it. That's all I need, I said. Derek waited outside the study when she left. He watched her go, then looked at me. 5 minutes are up. She didn't throw me out, I said. Don't make me regret that, he warned, but his tone wasn't as sharp as before. Leo joined me at the door. You look like a man who survived a firing squad. Close enough, I said. She listened, more than I deserved. He nodded. Progress. We stepped out into the bright afternoon. The air smelled like rain again, clean and cold. Leo unlocked the car. So, Captain Confession, how do you feel? Lighter, I said, and hungrier. He chuckled. Love and adrenaline. Dangerous mix. Don't start, I warned. Too late, he said, grinning. You've got that look. What look? The I'd jump a fence for her look. I rolled my eyes. Shut up and drive. Adeline's pav. The rain started again just after Ian left. I stood at the window long after he was gone, arms wrapped around myself, trying to make sense of everything he'd said. He wasn't pretending to mock me. He was pretending to stay alive. I wanted to stay angry. It would have been easier. But underneath the anger was something smaller, softer, a flicker that refused to go out. Derek found me there, still staring at nothing. He leaned against the doorway. You let him talk? Yes. He raised a brow. And? I sighed. And I don't know what to think. Try he's dangerous, he said flatly. That's a good start. I turned from the window. He didn't come to manipulate me, Derek. He came to tell the truth. You're sure it was the truth? He asked. He's been lying for months. Not about that, I said. You saw him. He wasn't acting. He shook his head, frustrated. You're too forgiving. And you're too suspicious, I said quietly. Suspicion keeps people alive, he muttered. So does hope, I countered. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Rain filled the silence again. He rubbed a hand over his face. Addie, you've already been through hell once. Don't walk into another fire. I smiled faintly. Maybe this one won't burn. Later at dinner, my parents sat across from me in the soft glow of the chandelier. Mom poured tea while Dad read through a folder of reports Derek had brought home earlier. You look troubled, Mom said, setting the cup down gently. I hesitated. Ian came today. Dad looked up immediately. Here? Yes. Derek shot me a warning look, but I ignored it. He said he pretended because someone's trying to kill him, I continued. That the car crash wasn't an accident, that his parents' deaths weren't either. Mom's eyes softened. And you believe him? I don't know, I admitted. But I saw his eyes, Mom. He wasn't lying. Dad closed the folder and leaned forward. Adeline, when people are desperate, they can make any story sound convincing. He wasn't convincing, I said. He was honest and scared. He said he trusted me enough to make me acting CEO, even when he couldn't trust anyone else. Derek groaned. He's playing you. Then why confess now, I asked. Why risk everything to tell me? None of them answered. I exhaled slowly. I think he needs help, and I think I'm the only one who can give it. Addie, Mom's voice was gentle but firm. You're still healing. This man, he's complicated, dangerous, and you just started to breathe again. I know, I whispered, but I can't shake the feeling that helping him will somehow help me too. Dad studied me for a long moment, then finally sighed. If you're going back, you're not going alone. Derek will. I don't need a babysitter, I said quickly. You'll have one anyway, Derek muttered, just in case. I smiled a little. Fine, but not tonight. Then when? Dad asked. Tomorrow morning, I said, before I changed my mind. After dinner, I went back to my room. The house felt quiet, safe, the way it used to before everything fell apart. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the soft reflection of the rain against the window pane. I thought about the look on Ian's face when he said, I never wanted you to feel small. He'd looked like a man who meant it. And maybe for once, that was enough. A knock came at the door. It was my mother, holding a small silver necklace, one I hadn't worn since the accident. I found this in the drawer, she said softly. You used to call it your lucky charm. I smiled faintly. It didn't feel lucky for a while. She sat beside me. Maybe it's time it does again. I took it, fingers tracing the delicate chain. Mom, do you think people change? She smiled gently. People don't change, sweetheart. They just remember who they were before they got lost. Her words sank deep. I nodded. Then maybe Ian's just trying to find himself again. And maybe you're the one who'll help him do it, she said, kissing my forehead. When she left, I clasped the necklace around my neck and lay back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. For the first time in months, my heart didn't feel like a stone. It beat a little faster, lighter. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe I was foolish. But I'd rather be foolish with hope than wise with fear. I reached for my phone, typing a short message before I could stop myself. To Leo, tell Ian I'll see him tomorrow. We have work to do. I hesitated, then added another line. And tell him I'm not mad anymore. Just disappointed he didn't trust me sooner. I hit send before I could change my mind. The phone buzzed almost instantly, a simple reply. Leo, he'll be glad to hear it. I smiled to myself, rolling onto my side. The rain had stopped. Tomorrow I'll go back. Not for revenge, not for power, but because somewhere between the lies and the laughter, I'd started to care again. Adeline's POV. Morning light spilled over the mansion's marble steps as I arrived. For a moment, I just stood outside, staring at the doors, remembering the first time I walked through them as Mrs. Creighton. Everything had felt calculated then. Today, it felt uncertain, but right. Leo opened the door before I could knock. He smiled faintly. I told him you'd come. Did he believe you? I asked. He didn't sleep, Leo said. So yes, I think he did. I followed him through the familiar hallways. The house smelled faintly of coffee and rain. Every echo of my footsteps felt like a heartbeat. Ian was in the conservatory, sitting by the tall windows with sunlight brushing his hair. He looked up as I entered, and for a second, everything in him went still. Addie. His voice was quiet, careful, as if saying my name too loud might break the moment. I didn't answer right away. I just walked toward him, my pulse racing, the distance between us feeling like years instead of steps. "You look tired," I said finally. He smiled faintly. "I was afraid you wouldn't come back." "I almost didn't," I admitted, "but my mother said something last night. She said people don't change, they just remember who they were before they got lost." He tilted his head, studying me. "Do you think I'm lost?" "I think we both were," I said softly, "but maybe we can find our way together." For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us felt fragile, like glass that could shatter with one wrong word. Ian stood slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. "I'm sorry, Addie, for everything. For lying, for hiding. You didn't deserve that. And you didn't deserve what happened to you," I said. "You were scared. I get it now." "I didn't mean to make you feel small," he said. "I just didn't know how to let you in without risking everything." I smiled sadly. "You still don't, do you?" He gave a quiet laugh. "Probably not." "Good," I said. "It makes two of us." We ended up sitting side by side on the small garden couch. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was soft, filled with the faint hum of birds and the slow rustle of leaves outside the glass walls. "I read your message," he said after a while. "I figured you would. You said you weren't mad anymore." "I'm not." I glanced at him. "I was disappointed, though. You should have trusted me sooner." "I wanted to," he said quietly. "Every time you defended me, it got harder not to." I smiled, eyes down. "So why didn't you?" He hesitated. "Because if something happened to you because of me, I wouldn't survive that. Losing one more person, He stopped himself, catching the word before it could escape. I felt it anyway, the warmth, the care, the unspoken thing hanging between us. So I said softly, "You didn't lose me, Ian. I came back." He exhaled, a sound halfway between a sigh and relief. "Then maybe I can breathe again." I laughed quietly. "Maybe." Leo's voice interrupted from the doorway. "Should I come back later, or are you too done pretending you're not making me emotional?" I rolled my eyes. "Come in, Leo." He grinned, stepping inside with a folder. "All right, since you're both in a forgiving mood, we have bigger problems to deal with." Ian's brow furrowed. "What now?" Leo handed me the folder. "Richard and Eleanor's anniversary party this Friday. Every major shareholder, every board member, and half the political circle will be there." I skimmed the contents, guest lists, security notes, catering details. "That's convenient." "Very," Leo said, "which is why it's the perfect opportunity. If Richard's hiding anything, the people he trusts most will show up. One wrong move, and we'll know where the trail leads." Ian nodded, back in focus. "We'll need invitations." "Already arranged," Leo said, smirking. "Under your names. Everyone thinks you're still the innocent couple playing house." I met Ian's eyes. "That'll make it easier." "And riskier," Leo added. "If they suspect Ian's recovered, we lose our advantage." "Then they won't," I said. "We'll keep playing our parts until it's time to end the game." Leo nodded slowly, impressed. "You really were meant for this family." "Don't flatter her too much," Ian murmured. "She might start charging per compliment." I laughed, shaking my head. "You're impossible." "Only when I'm nervous," he said. "Why nervous?" He met my gaze, steady and open, "because I don't want to lose what we just fixed." Something in my chest tightened. "You won't," I said softly. "Not if we keep telling the truth." "Deal," he said. "No more secrets." Leo cleared his throat. "All right, lovebirds, before I go fetch a violin, we'll need to plan your cover for Friday. Adeline, you'll act as his wife and escort. Keep eyes open, smiles ready. Ian, you'll stay in character, simple and harmless unless things turn south." Ian nodded. "And if they do?" Leo smiled. "Then we improvise." I exchanged a look with Ian. "That never goes wrong," I said dryly. "Never," he agreed, lips twitching. Leo groaned. "I already regret letting you two team up." I smiled, glancing at Ian again. "You shouldn't. We make a good team." He smiled back, softer now. "We always did." After Leo left, we lingered in the conservatory again. The sunlight had shifted, spilling gold across the floor. Ian looked at me for a long moment before saying quietly, "Thank you for coming back, Addie." "I wasn't sure I would," I admitted, "but I realized something last night." "What?" "I don't want to fight alone anymore." He nodded slowly. "Then don't. You're not alone." I smiled, and for the first time in a long while it didn't feel forced. Adeline's Pav. The Creighton mansion glittered with gold and flowers. Music floated through the chandeliers, guests mingling beneath crystal lights that looked too pure for the kind of corruption hiding here. Leo straightened my shawl. "You're tense," he murmured. "Shouldn't I be?" I said, eyes scanning the crowd. "Half the people here would stab each other for a handshake." "Smile anyway," he said lightly. "Makes the knives slip." Beside us, Ian stood in a sleek black suit, the picture of quiet charm except for the soft, innocent smile he wore, the one that made everyone think he was still, simple. He tugged at my sleeve. "Addie, can I have cake now?" A few guests glanced over and giggled. I forced a smile and whispered, "Later, Ian." He nodded obediently, though I saw the flicker of awareness behind his eyes. He was playing his part well. Richard and Eleanor spotted us from across the room, their expressions tightening like drawn bows. They whispered something to Mason, who smirked and disappeared into the crowd. "Careful," Leo muttered. "Eyes everywhere." "I know." But before I could move, a familiar voice slid through the noise like poison. Well, well. I turned and froze. It was Ethan Morales, and beside him, draped in silver silk, stood Clara. Her belly was round now, but her smirk was sharp as ever. "Adeline Hayes," Clara said, feigning shock. "Oh, wait, Creighton now, isn't it?" Ethan's eyes swept over me, slow and mocking. "So it's true. You married Ian Creighton. The poor man doesn't even know his own name half the time." I felt the sting in the words, but I smiled. Better an honest man with a kind heart than a liar with none. Clara's lips curled. "You married a child, darling? What's next? Babysitting your husband for a living?" Laughter rippled nearby. People were watching now, enjoying the show. I took a slow breath. "You should worry less about my husband and more about whose car you're sneaking into." Her smirk faltered for a fraction of a second. She recovered fast, but I saw it and I smiled. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Still the same mouth," he muttered. "Still pretending you're better than everyone else." "Pretending," I said softly. "Ethan, I stopped pretending the day I realized what you really were." Before he could reply, Ian tugged on my sleeve again, looking up with wide, innocent eyes. "Addie, can we go home? These people are loud." Laughter spread again, mocking this time. Someone whispered, "Poor girl married a fool." Ethan chuckled low. "A fool for a husband suits you, Addie. You always liked broken things." I turned away before he could see the anger in my eyes. "Come on, Ian. Let's—" Ethan grabbed my arm. "You're not walking away this time." Leo moved instantly, but I raised a hand to stop him. I faced Ethan squarely. "Let go." He smirked. "So you faked your death? You let everyone think you were gone just to crawl back and play wife to a child? You could have come to me instead." My stomach twisted. "To you?" He leaned close, voice a low, ugly whisper. "If you want money that bad, you could have been my mistress. I'd have paid you better than him." The world tilted for a second, rage filling every vein. Then my hand moved before my thoughts could catch up, and I slapped him. The sound echoed. The room fell silent. "Stay away from me," I said, voice steady even though my hands shook. "Next time you touch me, you'll lose that hand." Ethan's eyes darkened. "When I bag that contract I'm working on, you'll come crawling back. You always do." "Keep dreaming," I said. He smirked. "You'll beg." A voice cut through the tension. "She won't." Leo stepped forward, expression hard, every muscle coiled. "Back away, Morales." Ethan laughed. "What are you going to do, guard dog?" "I'll start by removing your hand from her arm," Leo said quietly. Ethan sneered and swung at him. Leo caught his wrist midair, twisted, and in one smooth motion pinned him against the nearest pillar. Gasps erupted around us. Someone shouted for security. Richard's voice boomed from across the room. "Enough!" He strode over, furious. "Get out, all of you!" Leo released Ethan at once, stepping back with icy calm. Richard pointed toward the door. "You've embarrassed this family for the last time. Take your wife and leave." Ian, who had been silent all through the commotion, looked at him with blank innocence. "Okay, Uncle Richard, can I take the cake?" More laughter broke out. Even Richard froze, not sure how to respond. I took Ian's hand. "Come on, sweetheart, let's go." Leo followed close behind as we walked out of the glittering hall, the eyes of the entire room burning holes into our backs. The car door closed with a heavy thud. Silence filled the space, only our breathing and the hum of the engine. I turned to Ian. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I didn't mean to get us thrown out." He looked at me for a long time, then smiled faintly. "Don't be." "I embarrassed you." "No." He shook his head. You defended yourself. I'm proud of you. I blinked, surprised by the warmth in his tone. Even after that scene? He chuckled softly. Addie, it took everything in me not to break character when he touched you. I stared at him. You heard everything? I saw everything, he corrected, his voice low, and I hated every second of it. My chest tightened. Ian, he reached for my hand. It doesn't matter, because while Richard and his cronies were busy laughing, I got what I came for. I frowned. What do you mean? He leaned back, calm again. Information, files, names, bank transfers, everything connecting Richard to the men who sabotaged my father's company. We have enough to start tearing him apart. I blinked, speechless. You planned this? He smiled faintly. Every second of it. Leo looked up from the driver's seat mirror, meeting my eyes briefly. Told you he's better at acting than half of Hollywood. I let out a shaky laugh. You two are impossible. Maybe, Ian said softly, but we're on the same side now. I turned to him fully, watching the way the city lights painted gold against his face. He still looked calm, but I saw the storm beneath it. Thank you, I said quietly. He smiled. For what? For not breaking character. He looked at me then, eyes deep and steady. For you, I'd break everything else. My breath caught, but before I could respond, he leaned back and closed his eyes. Adeline's pav. Morning came pale and steady. The city looked like someone had washed it clean. We met in the study, Ian, Leo, and me, around a table that still smelled faintly of last night's wine. The files Leo had taken from Richard's office lay in a small, careful stack. You ready? Leo asked, lifting the first folder. I was born ready, I said, though my hands trembled a little. Ian set the wooden plane down and rubbed his palms together. Show me. Leo opened the first file. These are internal transfers, shell companies, fake invoices, typical embezzlement. But look at this. He pointed at a spreadsheet on the page. This transfer here, 2 accounts, one in Creighton, one in a Morales holding. The money trail goes through both. My throat tightened. So Richard was laundering through our company. And Ethan's, Ian finished, voice small. They weren't just partners. They were moving money together. Leo clicked to the next file. There's more. These are emails, orders from Richard to an outside broker. And this, he tapped a scanned PDF, is a contract, signed. I leaned forward. The signature was unmistakable. E. Morales. My skin prickled. How did you get this? Ian asked. I have my ways, I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope I'd hidden there the night before, the one I hadn't shown anyone yet. I placed it on the table and slid it toward Ian. He opened it with slow fingers. Inside was a printed agreement, crisp and clean, dated months ago. At the bottom in Ethan's handwriting was a clause transferring temporary controlling interest of a subsidiary to a trustee, effective upon certain conditions, and a signature, Ethan Morales. Ian stared. He signed off part of his company? You signed this? Leo asked me, surprised. No, I said, not me. But look, I pointed to a line in the small print. It names a trustee, and when that subsidiary failed to meet benchmarks, the trustee could sell it to a specified buyer. The buyer named is, I let the silence hang, a shell company linked to Richard. Ian's face went white. So when the subsidiary failed, Richard stepped in and bought it clean. That gave him leverage. And the money to force the failure? Leo finished. They financed both sides. Ian pressed his hands to his temples. They set my parents up, engineered the failure, then offered a rescue that meant handing control to Richard. My parents said no. They refused to partner with Morales. That's when they decided to remove them. The room felt very small all of a sudden. My breath came shallow. So that's the link, I whispered. Ethan needed Richard to take over, and Richard needed Ethan to launder the contracts. Together, they broke Ian's family and then took the spoils. Ian's jaw worked. He looked at me. You knew about the Morales connection? I let out a long breath. I suspected, but this shows it. They financed the crash. They paid for chaos so they could step in. They bought the right to call the shots. Leo set another folder down. The broker payments were made through an account that lists Ethan as approver. The transfers match dates before the crash. This isn't circumstantial. Ian looked down at the papers, then back at me. You tore his contract yesterday. I felt my mouth curve. I did, but that was nothing compared to this. I tapped the agreement. This proves he signed documents that helped set all this in motion. And I met Ian's eyes, steady now. I have copies in multiple hands. One is lodged with a lawyer, just in case. Ian swallowed. You keep proving you're a better Creighton than half the family. Now what? Ian asked. We use it, Leo said simply. We don't go to the press. Not yet. We time it. We bring it to the board with evidence. We let Richard implode under his own paper trail. And Ethan? Ian asked. I tapped the torn Morales contract idly. He came with a contract. He wanted a merger. He wanted access. He thought he could buy his way into our world. Tomorrow he's scheduled to come back. Same time, same pitch. Ian's eyes sharpened. And you'll humiliate him. I will, I said, publicly, with proof. I'll make sure every investor, every reporter sees the truth. I looked at him then, and my voice softened. He tried to make me his mistress once. He thought I'd always take the money and kneel. He thought my death, real or faked, would be a pause for him, not a reckoning. Ian's fingers found mine on the table. Good. Leo looked like he had 10 plans at once. We need cover. We need a way to draw Ethan in. He believes you want his contract. Let him come thinking he wins. Then he'll lose, Ian said. You're too relaxed about this, I teased. You sound like you've already won. Ian's smile was small, but it reached his eyes. Maybe I have a piece already. I glanced at the documents again. We'll prepare the board meeting. We'll bring the audit, the payments, the broker notes, and this, I tapped Ethan's signature, as the smoking gun. Leo nodded. I'll coordinate legal. I'll make sure the trustee info is airtight. Adeline, Ian said after a beat, voice low. You said you had a document. Signed to you unknowingly. I nodded. When Ethan offered that merger months ago, remember? He sent a set of papers through his legal team. I asked Leo to intercept and have them checked. One of the drafts had an initialed page that gave a trustee power to act if certain triggers occurred. I didn't think much of it at the time. But last night we found that the triggers were manufactured, the trustees sold to Richard's shell. The effect was a takeover route. Ethan's signature is the key. Ian breathed out slowly. So he literally handed the door to Richard. You could say that. I felt cold, then hot, then steady. And tomorrow, when he comes to the company asking for his deal, we'll show him what handing over his name costs. He smiled, a fierce, small thing. I liked the sound of that. We spent the next hour going over the timeline. Dates, transfers, the broker's name, the trustee, the shell company addresses. Leo made notes. Ian cross-checked details with a practiced calm that made my chest tighten. He was no fool. He had been waiting for this puzzle. When we finished, Leo closed the folder carefully and said, We'll bring this to the board tomorrow afternoon. We'll need statements, witnesses, and a legal team ready. And a plan for Morales when he storms in, Ian said darkly. Leave him to me, I said. So I won't just humiliate him. I'll make sure he loses any leverage he thinks he has. Ian looked at me then, the plane in his hands no longer a toy but a tiny talisman. You're dangerous when you decide to be, I shrugged. Dangerous feels better than helpless. He nodded, satisfied. Then be dangerous. Ethan's pav. I slammed my phone down on the table so hard that Clara flinched. How dare she? I growled, pacing the room. How dare Adeline walk away from me like that? Clara shifted uncomfortably on the couch, one hand over her belly. Ethan, why are you even bothered? I thought you said you don't care about her. I don't, I snapped, running a hand through my hair. But she embarrassed me. In public. I just wanted to put her in her place, that's all. No one rejects me like that. Clara's eyes narrowed. You sure that's all this is? Because you sound like a man who still misses her. I turned sharply. Watch your mouth, Clara. She leaned back, lips twisting. You keep saying you don't care, but you've been angry ever since she showed up at that party. She's nothing, Ethan, nothing. Once you sign that contract with the Creighton Company, she'll come crawling. You'll see. That calmed me a little. I smirked and adjusted my tie. You're right. Once I get that contract, I'll own half this city. Creighton is the first richest family in New York, and Richard promised to make me his prime partner. Let's see how long Adeline's pride lasts when she's begging me for scraps. Clara smiled sweetly. That's more like it. I checked my reflection in the mirror. Sharp suit, sharper smirk. Perfect. I grabbed my briefcase and headed out. The driver already had the car waiting. As we pulled up to the Creighton headquarters, I couldn't help but grin. The building gleamed in the morning sun like a glass monument to power. My next empire, I thought. Inside, the receptionist recognized me instantly. Mr. Morales, welcome. The board is expecting you. Of course they are, I said with a charming smile. Let's not keep them waiting. She led me through wide hallways lined with portraits of the Creighton lineage. Every step I took echoed with confidence. Richard knew my worth. He knew I was the key to expanding his business. Today would be the beginning of something bigger. As I stepped into the elevator, I rehearsed my pitch again in my head. Profits, partnerships, joint ventures, blah blah. It didn't matter. I'd already won. Once I signed that contract, I'd have access to Creighton's resources. That alone would crush every competitor who'd ever doubted me. The elevator chimed. I stepped out and straightened my jacket. Two assistants opened the massive glass doors to the boardroom. The sound of murmuring voices filled the air. Mr. Morales, one of them announced. Right this way. I walked in, all smiles. Good morning, gentlemen. I hope you didn't start without me. The room went quiet. It was odd. Usually when I entered a room, people stood. But now, most of them were just staring at me, some in confusion, some almost like they were waiting for something. Richard wasn't there. Where's Richard Creighton? I asked, still smiling though my voice came out sharper than I intended. He and I have a contract to finalize. One of the older board members cleared his throat. Mr. Creighton stepped down from active control recently. The acting CEO will be conducting this meeting. Acting CEO? I repeated, frowning. Since when? No one answered. I let out a laugh. Fine, whoever it is, let's get this over with. I've got another meeting after this. Then the doors behind me opened. The sound alone silenced the room. Sharp heels against marble, steady and slow. Something in my gut tightened. I turned around and froze. She walked in like she owned the place. Her hair framed her face perfectly, every step measured, every inch of her posture screaming confidence and control. A faint smile played on her lips, the kind that could slice through steel. Adeline, I breathed, unable to stop myself. She didn't even glance at me at first. She walked straight past, eyes locked on the head seat at the table. The board members immediately stood as she approached. She took her place where Richard used to sit. That was when it hit me. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't an intruder. She was in charge. Adeline finally turned to me then, her gaze cool and knowing. The entire room watched us, waiting for whatever storm was about to break. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My throat felt dry. What are you doing here? She tilted her head, the same small, taunting smile still on her lips. Hello, Ethan, she said softly, her voice carrying across the entire boardroom like music that didn't belong in this world. What are you doing in my husband's company? Ethan's pav. For a second, I could only hear the clock ticking. Her words hung in the air like smoke. My husband's company. I laughed, short, sharp. You're joking. I looked around at the board members, waiting for someone to laugh with me. No one did. Adeline rose from the chair at the head of the table. The click of her heels was louder than my heartbeat. I'm not joking, Mr. Morales. You seem to be in the wrong building. Where's Richard? I demanded. He and I had an agreement. She smiled faintly. Richard Creighton is under investigation for corporate fraud. As of last week, all his assets and responsibilities have been transferred to the acting CEO, me. Murmurs rippled around the room. I forced a smile, adjusting my tie. Fine. Then let's finish this contract. I have other appointments. You mean this contract? She lifted a folder from the table, the one I'd spent weeks negotiating. I've reviewed it. Her voice chilled the room. It's been terminated. The board erupted in confusion. What? I laughed again, louder. That contract was finalized. Richard already signed it. True, she said, her tone flat as steel. But I did not, and as the acting CEO, my signature determines whether it stands. She slid the folder across the polished surface until it stopped right before me. It doesn't. One of the senior partners rose. Mrs. Creighton, this deal was vetted before your appointment. Adeline cut him off with a look, and revoked under my authority. All eyes turned to me. My mouth had gone dry. I forced myself to stay composed, tapping my pen. This isn't over, Adeline. I could sue. Oh, you won't. She pulled another document from her portfolio and laid it on the table. Because you can't. The papers faced me, dense with text, seals, and a signature that made my stomach drop. My signature. I blinked. What is this? The purchase agreement you signed months ago, she said. The one transferring controlling interest of your holding company to a Creighton-linked trustee. I stared at the page, then up at her. That's not possible. I never. You did. Her tone didn't rise. It cut lower, quieter. You initialed every page. It's verified, notarized, and filed. Your company, Mr. Morales, now belongs to us. My vision blurred for a second. The boardroom felt smaller, the air heavier. No, I whispered. No, this is fraud. Check the records, she said. They're public. It's all perfectly legal. The directors began murmuring again, some already picking up their phones. I caught snippets. How did this happen? He signed that himself. Morales is finished. I gripped the edge of the table to keep steady. You set me up. You set yourself up, she corrected. You were too eager to grab what wasn't yours. You didn't even read what you were signing. I tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. Around me, cameras began flashing. The press had been waiting outside, drawn by whispers of the Creighton shakeup. Security opened the doors and reporters flooded in. Adeline turned toward them, voice calm but carrying like a command. Ladies and gentlemen, you're just in time. Someone shouted. Mrs. Creighton, what's happening with Morales Industries? She looked back at me, eyes cold. Mr. Morales has just discovered that his company now belongs to the Creighton Group. She faced the cameras fully, and that the merger he came to finalize today no longer exists. The room exploded in light and noise. Microphones pushed forward. Mr. Morales, is this true? How much did you lose? Did you know about the fraud case? I tried to back away, my chest tightening. Adeline, stop this. She turned slightly, just enough for only me to hear. Should I tell them what you and Richard Creighton did? She asked softly. Or would you prefer to confess yourself? Every word hit like a hammer. What are you talking about? I stammered. She didn't answer. She just smiled, the kind of smile that tells you the game is over. Mrs. Creighton, another reporter yelled, are you accusing Mr. Morales of criminal activity? Adeline's eyes flicked to me, gleaming. Ask him. The shouting grew louder. Cameras flashed in my face. I could feel sweat sliding down my neck, the taste of panic bitter on my tongue. Adeline, I muttered, voice breaking, please, don't. She looked past me, addressing the press again. That will be all for now. I'm sure the evidence will speak for itself. Security moved forward to control the reporters. Questions overlapped. Is Morales bankrupt? Did Creighton buy him out? Was this revenge? I could barely hear myself think. The flashes, the shouting, the realization. It all hit at once. The deal was gone. My company was gone. And Adeline, my Adeline, stood tall at the center of the storm, untouchable. The last thing I saw before the doors closed was her turning toward the cameras, perfectly composed, as the reporters surged forward shouting her name, Adeline's Pav. The headlines were everywhere. Creighton Group terminates Morales merger. Adeline Hayes, Creighton returns from the dead, takes control. Every screen, every phone, every news ticker carried my name. I sank into the couch, legs tucked beneath me, the weight of months of pain finally beginning to lift. Leo brought champagne from the study, and Ian joined us smirking. To new beginnings, Leo said, raising his glass. I smirked, clinking mine against his, and to well-deserved endings. Ian lifted his own glass, and to Addie. I laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. We toasted, the three of us, laughter bubbling through the room. For the first time in forever, I felt light. That peace didn't last long. The door slammed open so hard the chandelier rattled. Richard stormed in first, his face red, Eleanor right behind him, clutching her pearls, and Mason trailing close, jaw tight with barely restrained rage. How dare you? Richard bellowed. How dare you humiliate this family on live television? Leo stepped forward instinctively, but Ian touched his arm lightly. Let them talk. Eleanor's eyes darted to Ian and then back to me. You've ruined us, Adeline. You think the Creighton family name will survive this scandal? I stood slowly, calm but unyielding. You ruined yourselves. Richard jabbed a finger at me. You had no right to take this company. That's where you're wrong. Another voice cut in, low but sharp. We all turned. Ian had risen from his chair. His usual soft, distracted expression was gone. His back was straight, his eyes bright and clear. The room went utterly still. Richard blinked. Ian? Ian smiled, looking calm, cold, terrifyingly composed. You seem surprised, Uncle. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Eleanor stumbled back, color draining from her face. You're supposed to. Be broken? Ian finished for her. Be quiet, simple-minded, too lost to understand what you've done. He took a step closer, his tone still soft but cutting deeper with every word. You should have known better. I've been watching. I know everything. Richard's composure faltered. What are you talking about? Ian nodded to Leo, who moved toward the desk and picked up a folder. He tossed it across the table, papers spilling like confetti. Those, Ian said, are the documents connecting you to the crash that killed my parents. The same ones you tried to erase. The same offshore accounts Morales used to pay you. Eleanor gasped. That's not true. Ian ignored her. The police have copies. In fact, he paused just as a sharp knock came from the front door. That should be them. Leo opened it, and 2 officers stepped in, badges gleaming. Richard Creighton, Eleanor Creighton, one of them said. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and manslaughter. Eleanor started to cry, clutching Richard's arm. You can't do this. Richard turned on Ian, furious. You think this is over? You'll regret this. No, Ian said quietly. You will. The officers cuffed them and began leading them out. Mason lingered by the doorway, glaring at us. You'll pay for this, all of you. Get out, I said. My voice came out colder than I intended. Before I make sure you join them. He hesitated, jaw twitching, before storming out after his parents. The house fell silent. I turned to Ian. His shoulders sagged, the hard edge in his face softening into something almost tender. You okay? I asked quietly. He let out a slow breath. Better than I've been in years. Leo clapped him on the shoulder. That was long overdue. Ian looked at me then, eyes gleaming. Thank you, Addie. For what? For standing beside me when everyone else thought I was gone. I smiled faintly. You've been standing beside me, too. Leo excused himself with a knowing grin, leaving us alone. The silence stretched, not heavy this time, but warm. Ian stepped closer. You said there was still one more blow to deliver. Clara and Mason, I said softly. They're next, but not tonight. Tonight, we celebrate. He tilted his head. Celebrate how? I laughed. You and your questions. He extended a hand, eyes bright again. Dance with me? I hesitated for a heartbeat, then placed my hand in his. Music drifted from the speakers, slow, soft, full of everything we couldn't say. His hand found my waist, gentle but sure. We moved in a quiet rhythm, the world outside dissolving until it was just us, the flicker of firelight painting shadows on the walls. When I finally looked up, his gaze was steady, no trace of the boyish mask he'd worn for so long. You're not pretending anymore, I whispered. No, he said softly. Not with you. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing mine. We've both survived too much to keep hiding. I smiled, feeling the weight of every loss, every victory melt away between us. Then don't. He kissed me then, and for once I didn't pull away. Clara's POV. The news wouldn't stop playing. Every channel, every headline screamed the same thing. Richard and Eleanor Creighton arrested for fraud and conspiracy. I sat on the couch numb, the TV flickering against the dark walls. My hands trembled around the cup of tea I hadn't touched. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan stood by the window, still in his rumpled shirt, staring at the city lights like they'd betrayed him too. He looked smaller somehow, broken. They'll come for me next, he said finally, voice low. Richard's files. They'll link to Morales Industries. I'm finished. I swallowed, my mouth dry. No, Ethan, you'll find a way. You always do. He turned toward me then, and for a split second, I thought he saw the fear behind my smile. I've lost everything, Clara. My company, my reputation. I can't even protect you or our baby anymore. I forced a soft laugh, reaching for his hand. You don't have to protect me. Just focus on yourself. He looked away, defeated, and something in me twisted. Not guilt, not love, just irritation. I needed him to hold it together long enough for me to disappear. After a while, he muttered something about calling his lawyer and walked out of the room. The moment I heard the door close, I stood, grabbed my car keys, and left. The night air was sharp against my skin. I kept checking the mirror as I drove, every pair of headlights behind me making my pulse spike. I didn't breathe until I reached the outskirts of the city, where the road turned into a dirt path leading toward a hidden hangar. Mason was already there, leaning against his car. His face lit up when he saw me. You're late, he said, pushing off the hood. I had to make sure Ethan didn't suspect anything, I hissed, glancing around. It's over, Mason. Richard and Eleanor got caught. Ethan's next. We need to leave tonight. He ran a hand through his hair, his usual cocky grin dimming. You're sure they'll arrest him? Positive. Once the police finish with Richard, they'll move to Ethan. And I'm not waiting around for that. Mason exhaled and nodded. Fine. We'll take the jet tomorrow night. I'll handle the pilot and the cash. After that, we vanish. I nodded, relief flooding me for the first time in days. Good, we deserve a fresh start. He smiled and cupped my face. We'll get it, babe. You, me, and our little one. No more hiding. The next night came faster than I expected. Ethan had fallen asleep on the couch after another bottle of whiskey. I moved quietly, packing just enough to last until we reached the islands. My passport, jewelry, cash, everything fit neatly into a small black bag. The house was silent when I slipped out. The drive to the airstrip was a blur of flashing streetlights and pounding heartbeats. When I finally saw the hangar lights glowing faintly in the distance, I let out a shaky breath. Mason was waiting beside the private jet, jacket slung over his shoulder, smiling like the world hadn't just ended. Hey, he said as I walked up. You made it, I nodded, forcing a smile. Let's just go. The sooner we're gone, the better. He stepped closer, brushing a thumb across my cheek. Relax, Clara. It's over. I leaned in and kissed him. His hands gripped my waist as he whispered, We did it. And then the world exploded in light. Floodlights blazed to life, blinding and harsh. The whir of cameras and murmurs of voices followed. What? I blinked, covering my face. A familiar voice echoed through a megaphone, cold and clear. Going somewhere, Clara? My stomach dropped. Adeline stood at the edge of the runway beside Ian, both of them flanked by officers and reporters. The flash of cameras painted their faces in cruel bursts of white. Mason froze beside me. How did they? Adeline's laughter cut through the noise, sharp and triumphant. Oh, don't act so surprised. I know everything, Clara. You and Mason's little plan, how you used Ethan to embezzle funds, ruin his life, and disappear together. That's ridiculous, I shouted, though my voice cracked. You have no proof. Maybe not, she said smoothly, but tell me, how do you plan to prove your innocence once this goes public? Mason stepped forward, face pale but defiant. Even if it's true, no one will believe you. Once we're on that plane, we'll be gone. You can't stop us. Ian smirked. You might want to say hi to the camera first. I frowned, confused, until the sound hit me. The hum of drones overhead, the clicking of shutters. Adeline raised her hand toward the crowd behind her. Reporters stepped forward, microphones ready, cameras flashing. No, I whispered. Mason's jaw dropped. The press and the police, Adeline added, stepping aside as officers approached. Funny how quickly they respond when the evidence lands in their inbox. The spotlight shifted, locking on us like a verdict. Clara Morales, one officer called. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. I stumbled back, breath catching in my throat. No, this can't be happening. Mason tried to run, but two officers were already there, hands grabbing his arms, dragging him down. The cameras flashed again, brighter this time, catching every second. Adeline's voice was the last thing I heard before the world tilted and went white. Smile for the headlines, Clara, she said, her tone sweet and deadly. They'll want to remember what betrayal looks like. Ethan's POV. The morning news nearly stopped my heart. Breaking news. Clara Morales and Mason Creighton arrested at a private airstrip after embezzlement and fraud investigation. Sources confirm Mason is the biological father of Clara's unborn child. I stared at the television, the mug in my hand slipping and shattering on the floor. The reporter's voice droned on, too calm for the chaos I felt inside. My name flashed across the ticker, Ethan Morales, under pending investigation. I couldn't breathe. The images that followed were worse. Clara, crying as police dragged her toward a waiting car. Mason beside her, his face twisted in fury. Cameras flashing, headlines screaming betrayal. The woman I thought I loved, the one I defended against everyone, had been lying from the start. For a moment, I just stood there, numb. Then everything hit at once. I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the house. The police station smelled like disinfectant and gunpowder. I pushed past the officers until one of them recognized me. She's in the holding cell, the man said quietly. You've got 5 minutes. I walked down the corridor, my footsteps echoing. Clara was sitting on the bench, hands cuffed, eyes red. When she saw me, she laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Well, she said softly, look who finally showed up. Clara, I hissed, voice shaking. Tell me it's not true. She tilted her head. Which part? That Mason's the father? Or that we plan to take your money and run? I felt something snap. You used me. Everything. Our marriage, our baby. It was all fake. Her smirk faltered for a second, then returned. Don't act like you're innocent, Ethan. You married me to prove a point to Adeline. We were both using someone. That's not true, I shouted. Oh, please. Her voice rose. You never loved me. You just wanted to hurt her. And look where it got you. No company, no money, no love. Just you and your ego. I stared at her, the weight of her words pressing down on my chest. You destroyed me, Clara. No, she said quietly. You destroyed yourself. I just helped. The officer tapped the bars. Time's up. I turned and walked out before I said something I'd regret. My hands were shaking, my vision blurred. I drove straight to the detention center where Mason was being held. When I saw him through the glass, sitting there like he owned the world, something in me broke. I slammed my hand on the counter. You ruined everything. Mason didn't flinch. You did that yourself, Morales. You were too blind to see what was right in front of you. I started, but before I could finish, 2 officers pulled me back. Enough, one of them said. You're under arrest for disturbance of a federal investigation. I didn't resist. What was the point? By evening, I was sitting in a holding room, wrists aching from the cuffs. My mother arrived an hour later, eyes swollen from crying. Oh, Ethan, she whispered, rushing to me. What have we done? I couldn't look at her. You were right, I said hollowly. About everything. No, she said, shaking her head. We were wrong about Adeline. She was the only one who truly loved you, and we helped you destroy it. She signed the papers for my release, and we left in silence. Outside, the night air bit cold against my skin. We should go to her, my mother said suddenly. We should apologize. Mom, she deserves to hear it, even if she never forgives us. I didn't have the strength to argue. When we arrived at the Creighton mansion, the guards let us in without a word. Adeline was waiting in the living room, calm, poised, her expression unreadable. Ian stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Ethan, she said coolly. Mrs. Morales. My mother stepped forward first. Adeline, we came to apologize for everything, for doubting you, for the pain we caused. Adeline raised a hand, silencing her. Your apology doesn't change the past. I swallowed hard. Adeline, I didn't know what Clara was doing. I was blind. I let anger destroy us. Her cold gaze flicked to me. And now you want what? Forgiveness? Redemption? I nodded, voice breaking. Please, I lost everything. I just want a chance to make things right. She studied me for a long time, her silence heavier than words. Finally, she spoke. You once asked me how it feels to lose everything, she said softly. Now you know. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I spent years loving you, Ethan, she continued, voice steady but sharp. You lied, betrayed, and blamed me for things I didn't do. And now when everything falls apart, you remember me. My mother sobbed quietly behind me. Please, Adeline. Adeline's expression didn't change. I don't hate you, Mrs. Morales, but I'll never forget what your son did. She turned to me then, her eyes glinting with something colder than anger. Ethan, she said, you don't need to make anything right. You just need to live with what you've done. The finality in her tone hit like a blow. Adeline, please. Goodbye, she said simply and turned away. Ian's gaze met mine, steady and unreadable. You should go, he said quietly. I stood there for a moment longer, my throat tight, my chest hollow. Then I nodded and walked out. The night felt endless as I stepped outside. Reporters shouted my name from the gates, their flashes catching the tears I refused to wipe away. Inside, behind those tall glass windows, Adeline stood beside Ian. And for the first time, I realized what it truly meant to lose everything. Adeline's POV. The house was still. Morning light spilled through the wide windows, gentle and golden. For the first time in months, the air felt peaceful. I stood by the balcony, watching the garden below when I heard footsteps behind me. Are you fine? Ian's voice was soft, still husky from sleep. He leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets, the hint of a smile playing on his lips. I turned to him, meeting his steady gaze. I'm fine, I said honestly. We finally did it. We got rid of everyone who ever tried to break us. He came closer until his hand brushed mine. It's over, Addie. You can breathe again. I know. I smiled faintly. It feels strange to have peace after living in anger for so long. He reached up, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. Maybe it's time to start living for something else. Something like what? His eyes softened. Happiness. The word lingered between us like a promise. Later that day, I drove to my parents' home. The gates opened before me, and for a moment I was 20 again, before the pain, before the betrayals. My mother met me at the door, eyes glistening as she hugged me tightly. "My brave girl," she whispered. "You did it." My father joined us, his proud smile making my heart ache in the best way. "You've avenged our name, restored the company, and reclaimed everything they took. So tell us," he said, "now that you've fulfilled your plan, when are you coming home?" I hesitated. For the first time, I didn't have an immediate answer. "I don't know," I said softly. "I thought I wanted to come back after all this. But now, there's someone I don't want to leave." My mother's eyes lit up instantly. "Ian?" I nodded, feeling my cheeks warm. "Yes." My parents exchanged delighted glances. Derek, standing by the doorway, laughed. "So the rumor's true. Our fierce little sister has fallen in love." "Oh, hush," I muttered, but couldn't help smiling. "Then it's settled," my father said warmly. "You found peace. That's all we ever wanted." I spent the afternoon catching up with them, the conversation light and easy. For once, no one mentioned revenge or loss, only new beginnings. Just as I was preparing to leave, Derek stretched lazily and said, "Hey, Addie, come with me to a quick business meeting. It's nearby, and I could use the company." I agreed, thinking nothing of it. The restaurant he chose was one of those elegant rooftop places overlooking the city. Soft music played, and the tables were adorned with flowers. I raised a brow. "Since when do your business meetings involve candles?" He grinned. "Since today. Just sit." Before I could question further, someone appeared behind me. "Ian," I breathed. He was dressed in a dark suit, the kind of simple elegance that didn't need effort. His smile was nervous, but his eyes held nothing but warmth. Derek stood, excusing himself quietly, leaving us alone. "I thought you had a meeting," I said, heart racing. "I did," Ian said. "A very important one with you." He reached into his jacket pocket, and before my mind could catch up, he was already kneeling. My breath caught. The entire restaurant seemed to fade until it was just him and me. "Adeline Hayes Creighton," he began softly, "you came into my life when I was at my weakest. You saw the worst parts of me and never ran. You gave me a reason to fight again, to live again. We started this journey by accident, but I don't want to keep pretending we're bound by circumstance. I want us to choose each other officially, freely, completely." He opened the small velvet box, revealing a simple, elegant ring that glimmered under the soft light. "So," he said, voice trembling just a little, "will you marry me not the way we signed on paper, but the way that matters?" Tears welled up in my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The joy felt too big for words. "Yes," I whispered, then louder, laughing through the tears. "Yes! 1,000 times, yes!" The restaurant erupted into quiet applause as Ian slipped the ring onto my finger. He stood, pulling me into his arms, and I felt the world right itself in that single heartbeat. "I love you," I murmured. He smiled, his forehead resting against mine. "I love you too, and I'm never letting go." Adeline's Pav. The night after the celebration should have been perfect. The house smelled faintly of roses and champagne, laughter still echoing from the halls where our friends had toasted to our future. Yet, when the quiet settled in and the lights dimmed, I found myself staring at the ceiling, wide awake. Ian shifted beside me, his breathing slow and steady. I turned to look at him, this man who had stood beside me through every battle, who had seen both my fire and my fear. He looked peaceful, unguarded. I felt a sharp pang of guilt in my chest. "Adeline," he murmured without opening his eyes, "you're thinking too loudly." A weak laugh escaped me. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you." He rolled onto his side, eyes still heavy with sleep. "You've been quiet since the party. What's wrong?" I hesitated, my hands twisting the sheet. "There's something I should have told you before you proposed." He sat up, instantly alert. "Tell me now." My throat closed up. I had rehearsed this moment for days, yet the words still hurt. "After everything Ethan did to me, the doctor said the damage was too severe. I can't have children." Ian didn't speak. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it. I stared down at my hands, tears blurring my vision. I should have told you sooner. You deserve a chance to walk away before we build something that can never be whole. Adeline, he said finally, his voice low but steady, look at me. I lifted my gaze. He reached out, brushing away my tears with his thumb. Do you really think that's what matters to me? I shook my head helplessly. You deserve a family, Ian. You deserve everything. He smiled, small and genuine. I already have everything. I have you. Tears spilled freely now. You're serious? Completely. Families aren't measured by blood. We can adopt. We can travel. We can fill the house with noise and laughter in other ways. As long as you're there, that's enough. Something inside me broke. The guilt, the shame, the fear, they all unraveled at his words. I pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath. You always know exactly what to say. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. No, I just finally know what I can't live without. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting the room gold. Ian was gone to a meeting by the time I woke, but he'd left breakfast on the nightstand and a folded note under the tray. You are my heart. Don't ever doubt it. I smiled through the lump in my throat. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a battlefield. But before I could move forward completely, there was one last ghost to face. The prison visiting room was stark and cold. A pane of scratched glass separated me from the woman who had once been my rival, my betrayer, my shadow. Clara looked smaller now, pale skin, tangled hair, bitterness written across her face like a scar. She smirked when she saw me. Well, the golden girl visits the fallen one. I sat down slowly, keeping my expression calm. I didn't come here to fight, Clara. Of course not, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You came to gloat. No, I said softly. I came because I needed to see it for myself, to know that it's finally over. Clara leaned forward, eyes burning. You think a few bars can keep me down? I'll be out soon enough. People like me always find a way back. I met her stare evenly. Maybe. But even if you walk out, you'll never undo what you did to me, to Ethan, to yourself. She laughed, brittle and sharp. You think you've won, but you're just like me, Adeline. You played your game better, that's all. Maybe once, I said quietly, but not anymore. You'll still be here fighting ghosts while I go on living. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Regret, maybe. Then she looked away. Enjoy your happy ending, she said bitterly. I will, I replied, standing. That's what makes it an ending. I set the phone down and walked out without looking back. The air outside felt cleaner. My mother was waiting by the car, her face breaking into a smile as soon as she saw me. Did you say what you needed to? Yes, I said. I'm ready to let it go now. Good, she said brightly, because we have a long day ahead. Dress fittings, flower arrangements, come on. Your wedding doesn't plan itself. I laughed, slipping my arm through hers as we started toward the car. You're more excited than I am. She gave me a playful look. Nonsense. I've waited years to see you this happy. As the city skyline came into view, I felt something warm rise in my chest. We spent the afternoon walking through boutiques filled with lace and light, my mother fussing over every gown. Each time I caught my reflection in the mirrors, I barely recognized the woman staring back. When we stepped out into the late afternoon sun, my mother squeezed my hand. You know, Adeline, she said softly, your father always said you were made of fire. You burned through every storm and somehow came out brighter. I smiled at that. Maybe I finally found someone who sees that light too. She gave me a knowing grin. Ian? I laughed. Always Ian, Adeline's Pav. The ballroom glittered like a dream. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, the scent of white roses filling the air. Cameras flashed from every corner, but all I saw was Ian, standing at the end of the aisle in a perfectly tailored black suit. His eyes locked on me as though I was the only person in the room. I'd never seen him smile like that before. It wasn't the polite, careful smile of the man who hid behind masks. It was real, radiant, and meant only for me. My heart raced as I walked toward him, my gown sweeping the floor like clouds. The music swelled, the crowd rose to their feet, and for a moment, everything felt still. This was it. After every betrayal, pain, loss, this was my beginning. When I reached him, Ian took my hand, his thumb tracing soft circles against my skin. You look like you walked out of heaven, he whispered. I laughed quietly. and you look like you belong there with me." The priest smiled. "We are gathered here today." His words faded into a blur of vows and promises. I meant every one of mine, every breath, every syllable. When Ian slid the ring onto my finger, I felt something deep inside me settle. Peace. "Do you, Adeline Hayes, take Ian Creighton as your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," I said, my voice steady and sure. Applause filled the room. Music started again, soft and elegant. Ian leaned down and kissed me gently, and the world exploded in flashes of light and cheers. We were married. The reception that followed was pure joy. People dancing, laughing, toasting. My parents cried. Derek teased Ian endlessly, and even Leo couldn't hide his grin. I excused myself after a while, slipping out into the quiet hallway in the ballroom to catch my breath. The air was cool and calm until I heard it. "Adeline." The voice was sharp, trembling, too familiar. I froze. Slowly I turned. Clara stood at the far end of the corridor. Her prison uniform was gone, replaced by a torn black dress. Her hair was wild, her face pale and desperate, eyes rimmed red from tears or madness. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Clara?" She gave a shaky laugh. "You didn't think I'd miss your big day, did you?" My pulse quickened. "How did you get out?" "Does it matter?" she snapped, taking a step closer. "You took everything from me, my home, my life with Ethan and Mason." "Clara, stop," I said, raising my hand. "You did this to yourself." "I did nothing but love him," she screamed. "And you," her voice cracked, "you came back from the dead just to ruin me." I could feel the air between us tightening like a wire. "I didn't ruin you. I exposed you." Clara's eyes blazed. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Everyone loves Adeline. Poor, sweet Adeline who rose from the ashes. Do you even know what it's like to be hated?" "Every single day," I said softly, but I didn't let it destroy me. Clara lunged forward suddenly, shoving me hard. I stumbled, crashing into the wall. My shoulder screamed in pain. "Stop this," I shouted. "You're only making it worse for yourself." She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "Worse? There's nothing left to lose." We struggled, her hands gripped my arms, nails biting into my skin. For a second, I thought she might actually kill me with the rage in her eyes. Then, "Adeline!" Ian's voice roared through the hallway as he and Leo burst in. Ian pulled Clara away, wrapping his arms protectively around me. Clara thrashed against Leo's grip, shouting, "She took everything from me, everything!" "Enough," Ian thundered, his voice cutting through the chaos. Guards flooded in, and within seconds, Clara was restrained, still screaming Adeline's name like a curse. Her cries echoed down the hall as they dragged her out, fading into silence. I trembled in Ian's arms, my chest heaving. She could have killed me. He pressed his forehead against mine, his breathing ragged. "You're safe. That's all that matters." Tears I hadn't realized I was holding back spilled down my cheeks. "It's over now, isn't it?" Ian brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Yes. No one will ever hurt you again." He lifted my chin, searching my face. "You're bleeding," he murmured, seeing the scrape on my arm. I forced a small smile. "Just a scratch. It's nothing compared to everything we've survived." He kissed my forehead gently. "Still, you're not walking back out there until the doctor checks you." I laughed weakly. "And miss our first dance as husband and wife?" "We'll dance later," he said. "In our own way, in peace." Adeline's Pav. "Addie, can you hear me?" Ian's voice was low but urgent. My head rested against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, grounding me after the chaos that had just ripped through our wedding. "I'm okay," I whispered, though the sting in my arm disagreed. "It's just a scrape." He frowned, brushing his thumb gently across my cheek. "You scared me half to death. You shouldn't have faced her alone." "I didn't expect her to show up," I murmured. I thought it was all behind us. Ian let out a shaky breath and drew me closer, wrapping his arms around me. "It is now. No one will come near you again. Not while I'm breathing." I let myself melt into his embrace. The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by exhaustion. I didn't realize we'd drawn a crowd until my mother's voice broke through the noise. "Oh, my poor baby." She rushed toward me, clutching my uninjured arm while my father hovered close behind, his usual calm replaced with open worry. "Adeline, sweetheart, are you hurt?" "Just a scratch," I said, forcing a small smile. "I'm fine." My mother sniffled. "Fine, you almost got attacked at your own wedding. That woman should be locked away for life." "She will be," Ian said firmly. "The guards have handled it. My father exhaled in relief and gave Ian a grateful nod. Thank you, son. You protected her. Ian only shook his head. I'll always protect her. The sincerity in his tone made my mother's expression soften. Then take her home, she said gently. You two have had enough drama for one lifetime. Go rest. Start your marriage properly. Ian smiled faintly. That's the plan. The ride home was quiet. Ian kept one hand on mine the entire time, his thumb tracing slow circles over my skin as if to remind himself I was real and safe. When we arrived, the mansion was dimly lit, soft music floating through the air. He guided me inside, took off my veil, and kissed my forehead. Do you want to sit? I nodded. He helped me out of the heavy dress, careful with every touch. The tenderness in his movements broke something inside me. After years of pain, someone was finally gentle. He sat beside me, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. You're safe now, Addie. I know, I whispered. It just feels unreal. Then let's make it real, he said softly. The world melted away as he leaned in. The kiss was slow, reverent, filled with the quiet promise of everything we'd both lost and found again. For the first time in forever, I slept peacefully, with his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. By morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, scattering gold across the room. Ian was already up, dressed in a dark shirt, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when I stirred. Morning, Mrs. Creighton. I smiled drowsily. Morning, Mr. Creighton. He leaned over and kissed me. You have a busy day, you know. The merger meeting's at 10. I groaned softly. You'd think being married would get me one day off. Not when you're you, he teased. Come on, conquer your kingdom, then come back to me. A few hours later, the grand conference hall of the Hayes Group was filled to capacity. Cameras lined the aisles. Executives, shareholders, and reporters waited for her speech the moment Adeline Hayes officially merged Morales Enterprises under the Hayes Group banner. I stood at the podium, a sea of faces in front of me. Ian and my parents sat in the front row, smiling proudly. I took a deep breath and began. Today marks not just the expansion of a business, but the restoration of a legacy. The Hayes Group has always stood for resilience, integrity, and strength through adversity. Applause rose, but I continued, steady and confident. Through this merger, we close one chapter of deceit and open another of renewal. Every fall teaches us how to rise, and today I rise not as someone who was broken, but as someone rebuilt. The crowd erupted in applause. Flashbulbs burst around the room. I smiled, looking briefly toward Ian. His expression was soft, proud, filled with love. Then the lights blurred. It started as a dull ache at the base of my skull, then a wave of dizziness. My hands slipped from the podium. Adeline? Ian's voice cut through the noise. I blinked, trying to steady myself, but the floor tilted violently. The sound of clapping turned to gasps. Addie? Ian was running toward me before I hit the ground. My vision dimmed, the world spinning into a haze of color and sound. I caught a faint whiff of his cologne, his arms catching me just in time. Addie, stay with me, he whispered urgently, cradling me against his chest. Please. Everything faded into silence. Adeline's POV. The sound of the machines was the first thing I heard. Slow, steady beeping, the smell of antiseptic, the soft weight of sheets. My head felt heavy, my throat dry. I blinked a few times before the blur cleared and the white ceiling came into focus. Addie? That voice was the only one that could make my heart move, even when I couldn't. Ian? My voice was a whisper, rough and small. He was beside me in an instant. His hand found mine, warm and trembling. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair messy like he hadn't slept in days. You're awake, he breathed out, his voice breaking on the words. You scared me so much, Addie. I tried to smile, my lips barely moving. You worry too much. I almost lost you, he said quietly. I squeezed his fingers. But you didn't. Before he could reply, the door opened and the doctor walked in. She smiled softly when she saw me awake. Good morning, Mrs. Creighton. How are you feeling? Like I've been asleep for years, I croaked. What happened? The doctor smiled again and flipped through the chart in her hand. You fainted during your speech. Stress, exhaustion, your body simply gave out. But Ian straightened. But what? She looked between us. There's something else you should know. We ran a few tests. You're expecting. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The words hung in the air like light. I'm what? I whispered, not sure I heard her right. Pregnant, the doctor said gently. It's still early, but the signs are strong. You'll need to rest, eat well, and avoid stress for the next few months. You've been through a lot." Ian's mouth fell open. He blinked twice, then turned to me, his expression half shock, half pure wonder. "Addie, did she just say?" "I think so," I said, tears already spilling down my cheeks. "She said we're having a baby." Ian laughed softly, the sound trembling with emotion. He cupped my face in both hands and kissed my forehead. "You hear that? We're going to be parents." I couldn't stop crying. But I thought, he shook his head, smiling through his own tears. "Don't question it. Just believe it. Miracles happen, Addie." The doctor nodded. "Indeed they do. Congratulations to both of you." The months that followed felt like a dream. I took things slow, no work, no stress, just peace. Ian refused to leave my side. He read to me at night, cooked for me when I refused to eat, and argued with my mother over how many pillows I needed to sleep comfortably. "3 is fine, Ian," I said one night, laughing. "Not 10. He frowned. "You're not allowed to be uncomfortable. You're impossible. And you love it," he teased, stealing a kiss before I could protest. Derek visited almost every week. "You're glowing," he'd say, grinning. "Looks like love suits you." I'd roll my eyes, but I couldn't help smiling. It did suit me. Everything did now. When the big day finally came, I remembered holding Ian's hand, his voice steady beside me, whispering, "I'm right here, always here." And then there were cries, 2 tiny cries that filled the entire room and filled the cracks in my heart I never knew were still open. Ian's eyes shone brighter than I'd ever seen them. "Twins," he whispered, almost in disbelief. "Addie, it's a boy and a girl." I laughed through tears. "A pair. Perfect." He kissed my forehead, his voice breaking. "You've given me everything I never thought I'd have." I looked down at the tiny faces nestled in my arms. They were so small, so warm, so alive. "We did this together," I said softly. He brushed a tear from my cheek. "What should we name them?" I smiled faintly. "You pick the boy." He thought for a second, eyes shining. "Elias. It means strong." "Perfect," I whispered. "And for her, Alara, it means shining one." He looked at me with that same soft wonder he'd had since the day we met. "Elias and Alara Creighton," he said slowly, like a promise. "Our world." Weeks later, our home was filled with laughter again. My parents visited every other day. Derek spoiled the twins with toys, and Ian never stopped smiling. Sometimes I'd catch him standing by the window, holding one of the babies close, humming softly, his eyes closed. "Do you ever stop staring at them?" I teased him once. "Not planning to," he said, grinning. "They're my proof that second chances are real." I stepped closer, wrapping my arms around him. "Ours too." He kissed my hair. "You still can't believe it, can you?" I smiled against his chest. "I don't think I ever will, but maybe that's what makes it beautiful." That night, after putting the twins to sleep, we sat by the balcony. The city lights twinkled below us, the same city where we had lost everything and found each other again. Ian took my hand. "You know what I was thinking?" "What?" "We went through fire, lies, betrayal, and somehow ended up right here." I laughed softly. Maybe this was where we were supposed to end up all along. He leaned in and kissed me gently. Then I wouldn't change a single thing. The stars glowed above us, quiet and endless. Inside, the twins stirred softly, their small breaths a rhythm of peace. For the first time in my life, everything was exactly as it should be.